Good Tuesday morning to you in the Mile High City. Jeff Hunt here with Bill Thorpe on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning, brother.
Hey, good morning. How you doing today?
I am ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Man, I love this job. I love this
Cool.
city. I love what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we got some great things up our sleeve today, some casual things, some deeper things. And you went down and you saw the Israelis.
That's
They
right.
were here in town yesterday. I got to hear about that story, so we'll talk about that later.
That's exactly right. We broke that news on this show. So you're going to get the best news coverage this morning, the best weather. Speaking of best news coverage, let's turn it over to Blake Olson.
Good morning. How you guys doing, Jeff, Bill?
Doing good, man. How are you today?
You guys all right?
For a Tuesday.
Well, I'll tell you what. I was kind of, I was fine, and this one kind of hit me this morning when I came into work. Country music superstar Toby Keith has passed away. The 62-year-old died peacefully last night, surrounded by his family, according to a message on his social media platforms. The singer was diagnosed with stomach cancer not too long ago and had been undergoing chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. So Toby Keith has passed away at the age of 62 years old.
Oh, that's sad.
Suncor Refinery in Commerce City has been ordered to pay a historic $10.5 million in penalties and improvement projects for causing air pollution. It's the largest ever settlement for air pollution against a single facility in Colorado state history. While some people say it's a step in the right direction, many locals living near the refinery are still experiencing health problems and say it simply isn't enough. A Black single mother and her two daughters have reached a $1.9 million settlement with the Aurora Police Department after they were held at gunpoint and handcuffed. It happened in 2020 after Aurora police mistook Brittany Gilliam's vehicle as being stolen. A lawyer for the family says the officers' actions were evidence of profound and systematic racism, and Gilliam says the incident had a major negative impact on her and her daughters. The city and county of Denver will begin discharging illegal migrant families from shelters again this week. This comes after the city passed discharges back in November of last year. However, officials say a recent significant surge of arrivals from the southern border has made discharging the families necessary again. The length of stay for new illegal immigrant families with children has been increased to 37, make that 42 days from 37 days. Officials say they hope the length of stay extension will give families more time to find housing. A man died in a skiing accident Thursday at Breckenridge Ski Area Resort. Staff say that it happened at an intermediate trail on Peak 8, and a ski patrol brought the man to a first aid room where he was pronounced dead. The man's identity hasn't been released, but officials say he was 52 years old and from Miami. His death comes after another skier died after she collided with a tree in Aspen in late January. So we're going to have cloudy skies today, but temperatures once again in the mid 50s today. So a beautiful day in February. It's 23 in Boulder, 25 in Castle Pines, and 30 in Denver. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
You guys got into a little interesting
Yeah.
Killer Mike discussion.
Yeah.
So Killer Mike, let's give people a little background on the breaking news that happened with him at the Grammys, right? Arrested,
Yeah.
or at least detained.
Yep.
And then released. But this conversation continued.
Yeah,
huh?
we had a conversation yesterday. Blake's back with us, and thanks for hanging with us, Blake, and giving us a little extra time. And we had a conversation about Killer Mike after
Absolutely.
the Grammys. Yeah, then Blake and I texted back and forth in the afternoon. He goes, "Wait, I just discovered who this dude is," and Mike
I
is
still have no idea who it is.
remarkable. I know, you know. And then I reached out to Jeff and said, "No, I want you going cold. I want you cold in this because I want your response to what you think when you find out who Mike is, because he is a very unique performer. He's unlike many rappers and has a depth of his intellect and his faith that probably would shock many people. Now, would you agree with him on his politics? Probably not on a lot of things. But you would agree with his faith, his family, his love of America, things like that. You absolutely would agree with him.
Interesting.
So, yeah, he's very interesting. Yeah, Blake, what'd you find out? Tell me more about,
Well, I think Jeff had a great story yesterday, which totally amazed me that his people contacted the Western Conservative Summit.
Yeah.
And I think he's confused on a lot of things. There's no question about that. But I do think he's a smart guy. And I heard this soundbite on social media yesterday, and this is very interesting. So it's not great quality, but just listen to this for a second.
My feeling is pick your policy, not your person. Find out. This is not the Dallas Cowboys versus your favorite team. This is the policies that will affect our generations for the next 20, 30, 40 years to come. So close your eyes, listen to the policies that are being pushed, and pay attention even to the people who don't have a chance of winning, because they're going to say policies you may want to push. And I would say do that, but make it policy-based.
And we've been preaching this forever. And okay, if you go with that stance, then hey, I love it. And if there was any way you could get him to perform and have a debate with him at the Western Conservative Summit, that'd be great. But you definitely have to make it the clean version.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Of his rap. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
That is awesome. Yeah, in fact, here is a little bit of background. This is Killer Mike sitting down and he's talking to Bill Maher recently. And this is a background on kind of how he grew up. And it's really interesting. And it will, based on what you just heard, kind of shapes his ideas and his, his focus on policy. yeah. That was experience with white people with PBS.
Well, he comes across a guy that tries to analyze the issue itself without getting pulled into all these different areas and distractions that have nothing to do with the actual issue. So that's pretty impressive.
Some of his conversations, he really does that. He peels back the onion a little bit and go, no, we're talking surface. Let's get a little bit deeper. The other thing that I appreciate about him is that he's not dogmatic. He's very malleable in his approach. He definitely will come to the table and say, I think we should do X, Y, and Z. And you go, X and Y makes sense, but let's talk about Z. He's like, okay, let's talk about Z. I told you off the air, he is part of an online bank that he started for poor people in and around Atlanta and in the Georgia area, for people that can't get approved through regular banks. And so he and a bunch of other people invested in this online bank and said, listen, you got some problems. If you can qualify for our scores and what we can do for loaning, we've got some access to some cash. We'll make sure it works for you. And so far, it's been a success.
And then he won how many Grammys the other day?
Oh, three. Yeah, he got 3.
So he's a talented musician.
Yeah,
too.
in fact, this is the single Motherless off of his most recent one. Not necessarily a rap again. He is not Bob Dylan as far as how he presents things, but he's a storyteller and he tells stories in his own way. And some of his lyrics are really good. This is just really personal. Yeah, that's yeah.
Got
So
Tupac vibe there.
yeah, it does. It's really cool. It's not nice call there with Tupac, because that whole motherhood thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like his breakthrough. That was one of his magnum opuses. Nice job there.
I
That's a good
have my
callback.
moments.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, eventually we're gonna have to talk Marilyn Manson and do some other stuff there.
There you
But
go.
yeah, but he's a really insightful lyricist and very emotional as far as what he does. So yeah, what do you think, Jeff? What do you think? I mean, does it change your attitude? Would you maybe invite Killer Mike to the Western
Yeah,
Conservative Summit?
I like that notion. We may have to obviously explore the little. Speaking of that Reagan song we were talking yesterday, today is his 113th birthday for Ronald Reagan, and throughout the show we'll be playing some of Reagan's greatest clips. But what was impressive to me was his ability to analyze policy issues without getting into all the other distractions, right? So I teach an evening class at Colorado Christian University, an intensive political science general ed class. And so we were discussing this, like, why should you care?
Yeah.
Like, why should you be invested in care in the policies? Because you can look at politics and get into the personalities, right? Yeah, I don't like Trump, or I don't like Biden, and I just don't like the fighting, and you step away. So people's natural inclination, if they don't like the fighting and the partisan bickering, is to just step away. But the problem when you do that is you're not part of the actual work of policymaking, which is coming up with rules we do collectively as a society on how we're best going to live, right? So we're talking about this in Lakewood and crime problems in Lakewood. And if you don't like that, you got to have a seat at the table. And you can't just go, I don't like partisan politics and bickering, and then step away from the whole process, because the decisions are made by people.
Yeah.
They're just made by people. So that clip of Bill Maher, that's impressive.
Yeah, it is. And there was a larger discussion that was really interesting on reparations.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
that is, and Mike is in favor of it, but how he structures it is really interesting. I know the idea. You go, oh boy.
Yeah.
But if you listen to how he structures it, you're like, oh, there may be something in what he's talking about. He's not talking now. He does have in his platform, he does have a payout, not a massive payout. It is a small payout. But again, he's malleable. That's not something that he is going to die on. If it's like, no, we can't do this. Let's do X, Y, and Z. What he has is his plan, because he's running an online bank. His idea is doing things like maybe some mortgage forgiveness, doing things like lower interest rates, doing things like, maybe lowering some tuition in some universities. Universities could easily absorb that kind of a profit loss. So that's the idea that he's talking about. He's like, what makes sense? That's what I appreciate about him. Because again, I'm not on board with reparations, but what I appreciate, and he is one of the first people that I've ever heard where he's like, this is what I think, but what do you think? He didn't come saying, this is what, he wasn't the Jesse Jackson, the Al Sharptons. He wasn't those where he was dogmatic about it. He said, this is what I think will help my community, but what makes sense?
Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, he's like, we got to make sure this makes sense. Is this workable? Because again, dude's in the business world. He gets it. He's not about just the free checks. He understands that he saw people in his community succeed based on their personal chois.
That would be a fun discussion at the summit.
Is.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think we should do that.
The only thing is, you got to censor him, because dude likes the colorful metaphors. I appreciate Mike, but yeah, the words fly sometimes.
We're getting text messages here. They want to have Killer Mike on. We have a line to him. So we just I'll outreach to them.
It would be a really, really
the listeners are asking, they're texting in. By the way, text in on the 710 KNUS app, or feel free to give us a call anytime. 303-696-1971. I know most of our audience is like me, Bill.
Yeah.
Going, what did I wake up to?
Yeah. What is this?
Killer Mike?
What is this? Yeah. Who? Why? And kill. And again, everybody thinks it's bad, but it's Killer Mike because he kills on the mic. That's the idea. He is an MC. He started out in 2000. I think it was right around 2000. He appears on a single with Outkast, who comes out of Atlanta as well, which is, of course, Andre 3000 and Big Boy. He then appears on a couple of singles by Big Boy, does a 2-part solo album that's got a part 1, part 2, does a 3rd solo album, hooks up with the rapper and Run the Jewels, LP. LP is a music producer and a rapper, produced a couple of Mike's things. They go out and tour together. They did some crossover where they're on stage together and went, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of cool. So they created a band called Run the Jewels. And again, this is more of Mike's rap stuff, but listen to the storytelling inside. He gives you a lot of insight as far as where he's coming from, but also his politics and his heart. But listen to what he's saying here. Yeah, that's from Walking in the Snow. He doesn't hold back.
He doesn't hold back.
He does not hold back.
We run into this at the Western Conservative Summit often. So let me explain the background of the summit. This thing was started 15 years ago. It's basically a Western CPAC, right? If you've ever heard of CPAC, it's a time for national conservative leaders to come to the Western United States, which they don't come to all that often, unfortunately. So we created this, and we invite Democrats every year. Very few have ever shown up. In fact, only one, and that was Jared Polis. And I'll oftentimes get this feedback that by putting them on stage, we're endorsing their kind of worldview. And I go, guys, there is like literally no other place where conversation takes place anymore. We yell at each other in Twitter. We yell back and forth. And I'll share the story of when we hosted Polis, because this was kind of interesting. So we invited Polis, and I'd kind of been able to build a back channel with him a little bit. So I texted him and said, hey, we'd love to have you. So he agrees. And we get all this kind of pushback, or are we now embracing Polis's worldview and that type of thing? No, absolutely not. We're just creating a space for the governor of Colorado to speak at an event hosted in Colorado, and he's willing to come and do it. So how is our audience going to react to him? And then it was my job to introduce him. So how do I go out and introduce the governor? If I go out and go, this guy is the most amazing guy in the world, we're happy that he's here, everyone in the Western Conservative Summit is going to be like, what happened to Jeff? But if I go out there and be like, this guy's a lunatic and we disagree with everything, I'm not being a good host to him. And this guy's willing to come.
That's rough. I didn't even think about that. That is a whole consternation inside of your brain for a couple of days behind. How do you do this?
So how do you do it? And here you have about 2,000 in a room of the most red-blooded conservatives in Colorado. Right.
Yeah. And you don't want to get booed off the stage.
Right. And to Polis's credit, right? He's willing to go in front of them.
Yeah.
So I go out there and I go, look, this was probably year 10 of the summit. So I go, guys, for 10 years, we've been inviting Democrats to come to the summit, and not a single one has come. Not even in the audience. We invite all the lawmakers to come. They don't even show up. They ignore this thing entirely, which I think is very sad.
Yeah.
We have a guy that's willing to come, and he's going to interact with who I think are the greatest Americans out there, red-blooded, conservative, grassroots Americans. Let's show him his appreciation, our appreciation, and let's welcome him to the Western Conservative Summit. Nice. He walked out to a standing ovation from Western conservatives.
Nice job. And wow, because that really could have gone back. That you should take some personal bows for that, because that's really a nice execution. That not many people would figure out a message that would get Jared Polis in an audience of conservatives to get a standing ovation. Very clever. Nice.
And then to his credit, he opens with a great joke. Yeah. So he walks out and he kind of looks around and he goes, I think I might be in the wrong place. I think my staff thought this was the Western Conservation Summit. And so then he opens up with some laughs, right?
Yeah.
And now look, and he did a fine job giving a speech. Now, I fundamentally disagree with 90% of what this guy does. And I personally, not as the leader of any of those organizations, but personally worked to make sure he wasn't elected again.
Yeah.
But we had a good time. And I've hosted people like Andy No, who's a great journalist. I disagree with his personal life. But this idea that somehow you put somebody on a stage and you're all of a sudden elevating and embracing everything they are about and we're behind and championing just isn't true. You've got to have places in this culture where you can still get together and talk.
Yeah, I think that's a problem that we have, is we've decided, like, you know, when Blake played that piece of Killer Mike, we've decided to, like George said, put on a sports team jersey, and then we're deathly afraid that our team is going to lose, and that any sort of an acquiescence, any sort of a listening to their side is somehow a loss. Now, for me, I have no respect for a politician that won't stand up in front of an audience that disagrees with them. If you really are that good, because that's where you're going to persuade voters. You know, Jared Polis, he goes to a gathering of Democrats. He's not persuading a single voter, but he has a chance to have conversations that might change minds inside of the Western Conservative Summit. I have so much respect for anybody on either side of the aisle that is willing to do that. The other thing is, this is the question that I have for people that say, when you give someone of the opposite political persuasion or religious persuasion a vehicle, a space to speak, or a platform, if your beliefs, either in politics or religion, are so fragile, either personally or in your community, that someone who disagrees with you is going to shatter or tear down those beliefs, You need to go back and spend some time with yourself and re-examine how strong those beliefs are. Because I can't imagine a single thing that anyone that I disagree with could stand up there and it would shatter my beliefs. Can they make me think about things differently? Could they persuade me a little bit? Yeah. But is it an endorsement of what they're doing? No. If you're really that strong in your politics, your beliefs, and in your thought structure, the other person doesn't matter. Listen, take in what they say, and then react. You're going to be fine.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of text messages here. Alexa reminded me, we've had Tulsi Gabbard a number of times. She might have been in Dem when she came in 2022. By the way, Tulsi's become a great friend of the summit. And it comes pretty regularly. We have a good time backstage, kind of hanging out and just talking.
Can we do a show field trip to Hawaii?
There you go.
It's an idea.
Tulsi, for Christmas, she sent me some fudge that her mom made.
No, we need to go there.
There we go.
You see what I'm doing here? You get the station to pay for it. We go there. We interview her. I mean, come on. You got to.
Kim in Littleton said yesterday on Officer Tatum's show, by the way, which is the lineup on 710K in US is amazing. Right after this show, you have Charlie Kirk, then Sebastian Gorka, you have Officer Tatum in the afternoons, and then you finish with Mark Levin in the evenings. Yeah. But Officer Tatum called Killer Mike a sellout lightweight on his show yesterday.
I would offer Tatum, bring Killer Mike on. Bring him on. Have a conversation with him. Have a conversation with him, because I guarantee that Tatum would be shocked with some of the things that Killer Mike says. I'm certain that he has an opinion about who he is, but that discussion, Officer Tatum may not understand what he's really prepared for. Yeah. Mike's not a stupid man. not by a long shot.
That would be good to watch.
You may not agree with him, but he's not a stupid man.
We should, Officer, I think that'd be good. Officer Tatum should do that. So good text messages coming in on the 710K in US app, and feel free to give us a call, 303-696-1971. Anything else you want to cover on Killer Mike?
No, I'm good. How about you, Blake?
Oh, no, I'm great. And you know what? I'm sure Brandon Tatum has contacted his people. I doubt that Killer Mike wants to go on Brandon Tatum, believe it or not. I mean, that's just an opinion of mine. I think it would be a great debate between the two, but I think ideas went out. Bottom line, I think when you're a conservative, I consider myself a conservative, and your ideas went out in the long run. So if you just sit down with it doesn't matter who you're talking to. If your ideas are correct, then they went out.
Good point.
Preach, brother. So we met yesterday with the Salem bigwigs talking about the Western Conservative Summit, and 710K in US is going to be, as they always are, great media sponsors for this year's summit. So this is a great partnership between Colorado Christian University and Salem to put on the Western Conservative Summit. But I'd love to hear from you as to people you'd like us to bring. It's not easy to get these guys out of Washington, D.C. and get them to Colorado.
Who's the Democrat we should invite?
Who is the Democrat?
Yeah. Who's that person?
Text in on the 710K in US app, because it's a lot of work. It's a big event, June 7th and 8th. Details and tickets are at westernconservativesummit.com. We'll be talking a lot about that between now and June, but this is a gathering place of grassroots conservatives, all these great organizations, all these speakers. Typically, we have like 50 speakers that come in and are a part of that event. So if you'd like to hear from somebody, want us to go out there and pursue, obviously, we're going to be pursuing President Trump, Tucker Carlson, all those folks to be a part of this year's summit. But let us know who you'd really like to hear from, and we'll do it. And these little options like Killer Mike, I love those, man.
That'd be fun. That'd be really fun.
All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Breaking news coming from the world of music. Sad news. Toby Keith has passed away as a result of his battle with stomach cancer.
Yeah, and it took him pretty quickly, too. That's not
sad. I really liked him. Man,
he had kind
that is
of
heartbreaking.
a weird revival in his career right about 2000 when the pandemic hit. It was kind of strange that, a lot of his older songs all of a sudden came back. And I saw, and there were some things as far as secondary and tertiary charts on the country side of things, because I dabble in that in my other job a little bit and fill in over there. And some of his older stuff came up and kind of came back. It was a really neat resurgence.
Because he was kind of like prime 90s country.
Yeah, he was.
Right?
Yep.
With the mullet and all that stuff.
And wasn't it? Didn't he went crossways with the Dixie Chicks, I believe.
Yeah. Right around the war in Iraq stuff.
Yep, exactly. He was the one that was really, and the Dixie Chicks took name at him, and both of them, their careers kind of suffered, both of them after that a little bit, because the audience didn't want them fighting. And then he kind of disappeared for a while, but then came back after the pandemic.
Well, friends, as you know, Dan Caplis is a great friend, not only of many of us in the conservative movement, but those of us in radio as well. And Dan Caplis is, if there was an attorney that I needed for a personal injury, he would be the absolute first person I would call. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts in motor vehicle crash cases. Dan and his partner, Bobert Wahid, won the largest truck crash jury verdict in Colorado history. The firm's history of 7- and 8-figure settlements and verdicts speaks for itself. They are a firm where good people from all walks of life, without regard to ability to pay, receive the level of legal representation that the rich and powerful enjoy. Dan Caplis Law believes that talk is cheap, experience counts, results matter. The firm would be happy to share with you its track record of outstanding jury verdicts and out-of-court settlements. Dan Caplis Law believes that who you hire says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. They suggest that you choose a law firm that shares your values. It is very true with regards to Dan. He's not only a strong believer, a man of incredible, deep conviction and faith, but he's a great conservative as well. The firm believes that its core values have been the foundation of its historic success: faith, integrity, hard work, and dedication to righteous causes. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551 or hit dancapilislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Well, in light of the fact that Toby Keith has passed, we'll be playing some of his opening music throughout the show. But today is also Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. We're going to have Mark Hillman on in the 9 o'clock hour to kind of talk about the legacy of Ronald Reagan, the importance of character in our politics. But we pulled some of Reagan's very best quotes to celebrate his 13th birthday. We'll be playing them throughout the show. Here's one on the press.
Eat us. And then you're going to listen to the other person. They go, no, it's not bears. Giant tigers are out there and they're going to eat us. And then as a journalist, it's your job to go to the door and look. Nobody looks. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's exactly it. And that's why journalism.
So do you credit, rumors are that Tucker Carlson went and interviewed Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, he was spotted in Moscow. That would make sense. That would make sense. And again, though, why? Why?
Well, do you think he's going to look? That's my question. Do you think he's going to look? Or, as some people are saying, he has become a tool of the Putin regime?
I don't think he's going to look because of things that he said about the Putin regime elsewhere. And deference that he has given to Orban's regime and other people that are strong men. He seems to have an idea that they are the better than what we have here in America, and that worries me deeply. Especially, he gave a speech last year or so where he talked about Russia, and he talked about Hungary and a few others, and he said the reason that the Democrats in America dislike them is because they're a Christian nation. No, Tucker, Russia is not a Christian nation at the core. Religion is constrained and religion is restricted there. And there are certain religious beliefs that are outlawed there. The idea that is this wonderful hotbed of Christianity. And again, look at the type of the orthodoxy that is prevalent inside of the Russian church is much different than the Western Christian orthodoxy. It's not at the Pope. They're not talking about Vatican. That's different. They have a different brand of Christianity there. And the idea that he would say they're great rulers and they're great leaders worries me deeply. That what is attracting him to their behaviors, their decision making, their hold on power. I'm real curious as far as his worldview right now. I'm not willing to throw him under the bus, but I'm real curious about what he thinks the actual ruling class and what American politics should look like, because I'm afraid he wants it to look a heck of a lot more like Turkey and Hungary and North Korea and Russia, because that seems to be the people that he is holding up as examples of good leaders. But that's opinion. That's my opinion. You know, it's just what I think.
Well,
Yeah.
That's all going to come out, which is going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
We'll cover it on this show. And part of the conversation today, especially with Mark Hillman in the 9 o'clock hour, is the nature of changing conservatism, because Reagan was very aggressive about taking on the Soviet Union and those types of totalitarian governments.
Yeah. And now we want to give them another country.
And
now we're like, here, have Ukraine. Would you like a fruit basket as well? That's real weird.
And so conservatism has changed. It's become more isolationist in the light of this. But to be fair to Reagan, he won a lot of that without actually going to war.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which, you know, after 20 years in Afghanistan, conservatives, especially as it responds to neocons, are going, I don't want that anymore. Right? Like we literally left, and 3 days later, they kicked all the girls out of school. Like what did we spend 20 years fighting for?
But again, we know why that happened. And I understand Joe Biden did mess up the withdrawal, but the reason that happened, it happened so quickly, was because of Donald Trump's negotiation, and he gave them a deadline date as far as when we were going to leave. It's the same mistake that Vivek Ramaswamy made when he's talking about with Taiwan and China. That's a huge mistake. He said that Taiwan was safe just for 4 years. So what do you think? What do you think China was going to do? They were going to wait for 4 years. Mm-hmm. When Donald Trump negotiated this hard date and said we're going to leave here, and said if you don't cause any problems or anything else, we'll get out. If you were on the other side, if you were the Taliban, what would you do? You would sit there and go, okay, let's stop shooting the Americans, but we need to put our people in all of these strategic places. They've given us several months of a ramp up in order to plan, in order to know that once the Americans leave, how do we take this? I'm surprised it didn't happen quicker after we left, because we had given them all of the tools, all of the strategy, and all of the time to make it work. That was, now again, the pullout also completely and totally muffed. But the idea that we negotiated a solid date to pull out is dumb, phenomenally dumb strategically. So, but now we turn around and we're like, well, maybe we should give them another country. And when we talk about Reagan using his soft power and getting things that America wanted based on foreign policy, one of the things that I would submit would be Ukraine. We don't have American boots on the ground. We're sending supplies, we're sending aid, we're sending
a ton of money.
Again,
a ton of money.
Wait, but actually no. 60. Hang on a sec. 60% of the aid money is spent on American companies or on American salaries. 60% of the aid money that we've cut. That's how the pie breaks up. The actual dollars that we've sent over to Ukraine are a fraction of that. Now there is corruption in Ukraine. They're going to take away the head of the army because they uncovered a plot where the head of the army and a couple of other contractors were trying to skim $40 million off the top. It was stopped and caught before it happened. So do I say that Ukraine's a clean country 110%? No. But would I pick them over Russia? Oh, yeah. That's not even close. And right now, we have seen 300,000 Russian troops either killed in action or are missing.
But I think it's very fair for Tucker Carlson to question NATO's activities over there.
Oh, it is
I
fair.
think that's fair
for anybody.
And Alexa's got a great text here. She goes, many others have interviewed Putin. And they're kind of celebrated for it, but Tucker does it, and all of a sudden he's a propagandist.
Oh no! Again, I don't think he's a propagandist. I wonder where he's sitting. I'm not certain that he's coming to it as a journalist. That's my question. I'll judge his conversation with Putin on his conversation with Putin. I'll be fair on that side, but I'm just curious where his head is.
Yeah.
But
I think there's fair stuff to challenge him on.
Even if he is pro-Putin, for whatever reason, let's just assume he is, that doesn't mean he can't do a fair interview. So again, I'm just curious. The only thing I have is I want to know where his head is. That's what I'm curious about. I have questions about that right now, but
Bill bringing the independent perspective. That's what you're going to get on the Jeff and Bill show. Jeff, the rock-ribbed conservative, and Bill, the independent questioner.
Yeah.
When we come back, you're going to hear the news program, the You choose the news.
Yes, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. And we might even get paid for it today, but I can't promise anything.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
On News Talk 710 KNUS. Hey, good morning and welcome back, Jeff and Bill Show. Bill Thorpe with Jeff Hunt And yes, it's that time of the morning where we get to play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. Yes, that's right. We have scoured the interwebs this morning for really stupid stories about us humans, giving them even dumber headlines to play this fake radio news game. And today, since we are starting a new chapter in the station's future, well, chapter day number 2, these are stories in which we will explore the future. You got to do it that way. Alrighty, sir. Here are your headlines. Your future wealth will be found in the past. Headline number 2, proving once again Hollywood can predict the future. Headline number 3, dude, get with the future. And headline number 4, the future sequel we all have been waiting for. Sir, your choices again are your future wealth found in the past, proving once again Hollywood can predict the future, dude, get with the future, and the future sequel we have been waiting for. Choose wisely.
I'm going to go with Hollywood because it sounds like it's one of those like Simpsons, like once again predicts the future type of
Well,
thing.
yes, once again, Hollywood has predicted the future about how much stuff in the ocean was going to kill us. Yeah, you remember 50 years ago, Peter Benchley's novel Jaws hit bookshelves and spawned a classic movie. Well, turns out it was telling the future because we had 69 unprovoked shark bites reported last year.
Wow.
That's up 6 over the past 5-year average, reported by the Shark Attack File, which has got to be a really interesting job. The bites are still within normal range, they say, which that's odd that there's a normal range of how many times they get to bite us. But worldwide, 14 confirmed shark-related fatalities this year, 10 classified as unprovoked, meaning the sharks were just jerks. So, yeah, pretty much it. As always, U.S. leads the unprovoked bites with 36 because anytime we're tourists and we go somewhere we don't belong, we seem to not fit in well and annoy people. So that's why. So, yeah, when we got into the shark area, they bit us more often. So congratulations, America. We're number 1. I know.
Number 1
Alrighty,
with sharks.
Yeah, your future wealth found in the past. Dude, get with the future or the sequel we have been waiting for.
Let's do the wealth.
Yes, your future wealth will be found in the past, sir, especially if you find an old cabinet. In England recently, there was an old English cabinet that was discovered, and sitting there in the back corner in the cabinet was a 285-year-old lemon.
An actual
lemon. Yes, an actual lemon that is 285 years old. It was stamped with the importer and had some dates on it, so they knew how old it was. It recently went up for auction, and it got a high bid of just over $1,700 for an old lemon.
What does an old lemon look like? How is it not just a rotten fruit?
That's what it looks like. But again, it had been preserved and almost, yeah, but it looks like a really old orange. It's kind of a dark orangish color and definitely not for eating or sharing. However, the cabinet that it was discovered inside of, that sold for $40.
But
so
$1,700 to have
a
a centerpiece to discuss during your dinner parties.
Yes, I still love the
That's
idea.
not too bad.
The lemon went for $1,700. The cabinet,
Went
40.
for 40.
That's a lot about supply and demand. All right, sir. Now, your final choice this morning. Dude, get with the future or the sequel we have been waiting for.
Oh, boy. There's part of me that loves the Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah.
But I also want to hear the sequel. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Dude.
All right, dude, get with the future. Now, most people, like we talked about yesterday, are moving from a landline to a cell phone line, either a voice or something just on the cell network. Well, AT&T wants to increase that a little bit. In traditional landlines in California and other states, AT&T is starting to just cut your home line, your plain old television service. They are working to shift towards fiber optics, Ethernet access. They're worried about the old copper wires. So basically, what they're going to do is say, if you're not switching from a home line to a cell or something internet-wise, too bad. So sad. Clip.
You're cut off.
Done. You are absolutely done. And I know you guys still have a home line. How does that work out for you?
So we have
'Cause I wanna talk about
we
that.
have the UMA.
Yeah.
So we use VoIP,
It's VoIP, but
right?
yeah.
But we wanted to have a central phone if the kids needed some help,
Yeah.
right? Because they're old enough to stay home,
Yeah.
but not old enough to have a cell phone yet, right? We're not going in that. We've watched our friends hand their middle school
Yeah.
boys cell phones
Yeah.
and then read the text message groups afterwards and be like, that
yeah.
was a giant mistake.
Oh, yeah. We have a landline at home. We still
You
do.
still have one?
Yep, we do. Guess what we don't have? A telephone that is connected to it.
Oh, yeah.
No,
it's
so
just,
we literally have
do you
it. and-
pay for that?
Yes. Well, it's wrapped into our
Your
internet.
bundle?
Yeah, it's wrapped into the bundle. It's pennies, so it doesn't matter. But you know what the reason is we keep that? That is the phone number that we put on all the advertisements and the
There you
marketing
go.
and all the stuff when you sign up and you go pick up the prescriptions and you go to the grocery store. That number. So it doesn't matter who calls that number, but our email, we get voice messages in case it pops up. The number of times you listen to them is slim and none. They normally get deleted because anybody that knows us calls the cell phone. But it is a great dumping ground. Anytime you go to those, you go to like the RV thing and you got to write down a phone number. I have a dead phone number. So it's real. It's live. We just don't answer it.
Here's something that I do think that the kids are really missing out on this generation is the ability to crank phone call people.
Yes.
That was a big rite of passage when you were a middle school boy.
And okay, I can't believe we're getting into this. Okay, there is a skill, and I've taught my kids about this. There's an adult skill that you need to master, and that is called lying. And there's something there that you need to, because in some social situations, you do need to be able to lie. As a happily married man, Jeff, there are certain times in which deference is better than being truthful. Does this make my butt look big? No, ignore that one. So those ideas. So I tell the kids that there is that idea of a little bit of the white lies. There are some ideas of presenting it this way that is going to be okay in certain society situations. Now, I firmly believe that when you made those crank phone calls, you were learning. You were learning how to present that lie. There was a lot of skill that was involved in those crank phone calls. So,
what was a crank phone call you guys would do?
Oh God, I'm kind of think here.
We would call two 7-Elevens and just stick the phones together.
Oh, that's a nice one.
And then watch them go back and forth confused, or pizza places or Chinese restaurants or those types of things. Or,
that's a really good one.
You had those or just crank phone calling your friends.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Now, I have a friend of mine that I worked in radio with for a while, and his house during his teenage years rang incessantly. And he said they would get crank phone calls 4, 5, 6 times a day minimum. And this was my really good friend, Kip Peters. And it's difficult because it was really, they were cranking his father, because you could find their name inside of the phone book. And his father's name was Harold, and he went by Harry. So yes, people went through the phone book and they found Harry Peters. So who do you think they were calling? So it goes all the time. The phone rang all the time. He goes, normally when the phone rang, he goes, it was like a 3-to-1 ratio. It's like you had 3 chances of it being a crank phone call, 1 chance of it being an actual phone call that you needed. He goes, it sucks growing up in his house.
I think that the kids today have a different option with crank phone calls, and it's all those spam calls you get. Yeah. So I actually we answer them. Yeah. And I turn it over to my kids and just let them go nuts with it. Oh, and so they get to play, like, does your small business need a loan? Yeah. Absolutely. It needs a loan. Like how much do you need? $1 million.
Now I have stolen this from a comedian. So I can't take credit for this, but oftentimes if I have some time and get those crank phone calls, I will answer, and they're like, "Hi, sir, we want to talk to you about your extended car warranty." And I'll go, "Oh my God, thanks. I can't believe you called. Thank you. I need help. Please, you need to help right now." And so you play along with me, like, no, call someone. You need to help me. And it's like, they're here. They're not letting me go. They won't let me do anything. You understand? They charge. They take all my money. They take food. I can't live with this. I can't. I mean, when they said we had kids, they said it was going to be fun. But you understand? I used to be cool. I don't have any hair. Now I drive a minivan. You have to call. And at that point, they hang up. So yeah, I use it as some sort of a hostage situation, and then we go into the fact that it's my family that has ruined my life. And I normally get hung up at that point. But if I have time, I will happily be weird.
Turn over those calls to your middle school kids and let them have a little fun, since they can't crank call anymore.
Oh yeah, that is a good way to do it.
Friends, we've got a great show coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. George Brauchler is going to be joining us for a major announcement. Jorge is back, which is great. So stick around for that 9 o'clock hour.
I heard he got the full body wax. I mean, this is a special announcement.
We're finally going to learn what George is doing.
Exactly. And I hope he brings the glitter.
9 o'clock hour, celebrating the 113th birthday of Ronald Reagan with Mark Hillman. He wrote a great article about character and politics, the importance of that. So just an absolutely fantastic show lined up. You can always text in on the 710 KNUS app or give us a call, 303-696-1971. Did you see the news about the Delta pilot suing DIA because he tripped over an escalator? I'd love to hear what your experiences are at DIA. I actually happen to love that airport. I think it's a great airport. I've been in Newark. I've been in Dulles. I've been in Reagan. I've been in all these airports. I think Denver International Airport is an actually really great airport. I enjoy that.
In a quick synopsis, why? What is it that you think sets it above?
I think it's really easy to get around.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think it's really easy to get through security. And if you know what you're doing, if you fly as frequently as I do, you can get through it pretty quickly. So
That's
I'd
good.
love to hear
That's
your
good.
stories, lizard people stories, secret cities under DIA. We'll cover all of that and more. Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. Breaking news today. Country music star Toby Keith has passed away. So all the news, all the weather, all the commentary, 710 KNUS. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
On News Talk 710 KNUS.
Seven a.m. in the Mile High City, February 6th, Jeff and Bill Show. Jeff Fontier, Bill Thorpe. Great to be with you. Good morning.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well.
It is a beautiful day in Denver. And look, this is how I think about this show.
Yeah.
You conservatives, you people that are going to save the state, save this country, you're up and at 'em. You're going to work. You're taking care of your families. My wife's driving the kids to school. The work of making a country great is happening by you, and we are honored to be on the radio with you today. Running the news for us is Blake Olson. Blake, what's up, brother?
Hey, Jeff, the prank phone calls is so true. My youngest came to me about 4 or 5 years ago. Dad, can we do you had to do it. So I did the old, I had him call a liquor store and ask if they had Dr. Pepper in a can. So he enjoyed
I don't know that one. I don't know the Dr.
one.
Pepper in a can.
Yeah, do you have okay, ABC Liquor, may I help you? Yeah, do you have a Dr. Pepper in a can? Yeah, I believe we do. Well, you better let him out or he's gonna die.
Yeah, that is the updated version of Prince Albert. That was the
Okay,
original one.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
Prince
the
Albert again.
refrigerator
Yeah,
run. It's
yep,
a refrigerator
exactly.
run. We better go catch it.
Exactly. No doubt about it. All right, good to talk to you guys. 32 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 50s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. And sad news this morning. Country music star Toby Keith, the Oklahoma native, has passed away at the age of 62. That was my favorite Toby Keith song right there. He had been battling stomach cancer. A House vote on impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas could come as early as today. On Monday, the Republican-led House Rules Committee voted 8-4 to send the measure to the full House for a vote. Committee Chairman Tom Cole of Oklahoma accused Mayorkas of refusing to uphold his oath of office by failing to enforce immigration laws. U.S. airstrikes on Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria likely resulted in casualties. That's what the Pentagon is saying. And Major General Pat Ryder told reporters on Monday, he said, however, that Central Command is continuing its assessment of Friday's strike against more than 80 targets. Suncor Refinery in Commerce City has been ordered to pay a historic $10.5 million in penalties and improvement projects for causing air pollution. It's the largest ever settlement for air pollution against a single facility in Colorado's state history. While some people say it's a step in the right direction, many locals living near the refinery are still experiencing health problems and say it simply isn't enough. A Black single mother and her two daughters have reached a $1.9 million settlement with the Aurora Police Department after they were held at gunpoint and handcuffed. It happened in 2020 after Aurora police mistook Brittany Gilliam's vehicle as being stolen. A lawyer for the family says the officers' actions were evidence of profound and systematic racism. And Gilliam says the incident had a major negative impact on her and her daughters. Both officers involved still work for the department. Super Bowl news, guys. The father of Kansas City Chiefs star quarterback Patrick Mahomes is allowed to travel to the Super Bowl despite a weekend drunk driving arrest in Tyler, Texas. The judge did not impose a travel ban, but he is banned from drinking. And it's sad to see him, Pat Mahomes Sr. This is the second time I think this has happened. And, he was a great pitcher, great athlete, you guys. I actually covered him when I worked in East Texas.
Oh, wow.
We went to Lindale High School. And he's younger than me, but I realize mug shots, aren't the best photos on planet Earth, but he does not look good. And I'm praying for him. And thankfully no one was hurt or injured or killed, but sad to see that. Hopefully he can turn it around, because right now he does not look good.
No, he doesn't. And if anybody would have, the extra resources and support mechanism in place. Right. I mean, I understand there are certain people that can't, but because of his family and because of his son, he does have access to other resources that we don't. And the thing for me with the DUI, I understand the idea that I can do it and I can make this individual choice. Again, he has the resources to call the Uber, and it's just those personal responsibility choices that make it very, very difficult. I'm not going to tell anybody, don't go out there and drink, but I'm going to tell you, if you're going to do that, don't get behind the wheel of the car.
Do you know alcohol consumption is going down in Gen Z?
Yeah, really? Because marijuana is going up, right?
Yeah.
Well, in part, but there's also a new status. So y'all aren't on Instagram as much, but I hang out with college students a lot. But they talk about it on Instagram as a new status symbol, that you are somebody that has to get up early to go do something. So you're not out partying. You're not out drinking like you used to.
Like when you and I were when all of us were in school, there was that straight edge movement. I don't know if you guys bumped into straight edge. And same thing. They were clean. That was the idea. They'd go out and they'd party with you. And I had one that was on my soccer team in college. He came out of the Air Force Academy, but really good dude, Doug Lundeen. Great dude, but he was straight edge. Yeah, he would come out and he'd hang with us, but he wouldn't party. Yeah, it's good.
Hey, I was the designated driver. I mean, for all my college roommates.
That seems like a big mistake.
No doubt. I'll tell you about it sometime. A refrigerator full of Colt 45s in it, and I could put my Diet Dr. Pepper anywhere.
Oh, my God. That's fantastic.
It was always
wonderful.
warm. Hey, NHL
great.
Rangers beat the Avs last night 2-1. The Avs take on the Devils tonight at 5:30. It is 28 in Louisville and 27 in Castle Rock, 30 in Denver. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
News coming in from the New York Post late last night. Rep. Lauren Bobert granted restraining order against ex-husband in Colorado over alleged, quote, suicide threats and threats to harm me. Rep. Lauren Bobert was granted a temporary restraining order against her ex-husband Monday after alleging her former spouse had threatened to harm her and himself. Jason Bobert has, quote, made multiple suicidal threats and threats to harm me over the past 14 months, the Congresswoman claimed in a Garfield County court filing Friday, according to the Denver Post. Additionally, the Centennial State's 3rd District representative alleged that her ex notified her via text that he had entered her I think that should say, is it still Colorado? I think it's Silt, Colorado.
Yeah, it's Silt. Yeah.
I think that's a typo there. The New York Post.
Oh, no, you mean the New York Post got it wrong.
Right.
The New Yorker's got something wrong about Colorado. Color my face shocked.
Home Friday morning without permission to remove her personal belongings and destroy them. Jason Bobert told the Associated Press that he went into her room to clean it up, or into her home to clean it up in preparation for the arrival of her granny. The judge's orders could be made permanent at a hearing later this week and includes protection for the couple's 3 minor children. They have a 4th adult son together with 1 grandchild. Here's my question. I would love to hear from you. I need to hear from you, okay? On the text line, call in 303-696-1971. Does this change your perspective on Lauren Bobert? So many of you listening live in Congressional District 4. Now, granted, she's a congresswoman from CD3 right now, but she's moved to Congressional District 4 because she wants to run here. Okay. And you have this last fall, the bad behavior that took place at Beetlejuice, all those things that kind of followed her around for a while. Is the fact that she's now been granted a temporary restraining order against her husband at all change your perspective on her? That she's a single mom trying to make it work, that she's been somewhat of an effective legislator. She's been on the national stage. She's probably voted right more times than not. That's one argument, right? She has gone through this personal crisis. We don't need to penalize her for that. We shouldn't penalize her for that. It's obvious that her ex-husband, Jason, has very serious issues. She's trying to navigate all that. And we should give her a benefit of the doubt in representing us in Congressional District 4, where I live as a congressional district. Here's the flip side of this argument. This is not a charity. We are electing somebody to do work for the people of Congressional District 4. They need to be focused on providing constituent services and representing our values in Congress. All of these personal failings, whether it's the Beetlejuice incident, her divorce, the challenge she has with her oldest son, legal issues there, but then also being a grandma, this is not the right time for her to be serving as a member of Congress. We need people that are going to be fully dedicated on representing constituents. She obviously has personal issues, and she should go and tend to those personal issues. and not be a member of Congress. She finished 5th in that straw poll that took place up in Weld County recently. So where do you fall on that line? Does the fact that she's got a now temporary restraining order against her husband make her more sympathetic to the challenges that she's facing, and we should give her the benefit of the doubt? Or does she need to move on, and we need to find somebody that can be constituent-focused, constituent-centered with regards to their service? And if you have personal issues, go take care of those personal issues. But that's not my job voting for you. What do you think, Bill?
Oh, you came with the fire there. That's nice. I understand why it does make her more sympathetic, and I think that it should, because many times people are hanging the hat of the bad behavior on her. She has her own incidents, but it does seem like in this relationship, at first blush right now, that maybe more of the agitator is the husband, based on possibly some addiction issues that he has, and hope he gets help and treatment for those. But I think you make a very accurate point. Again, give us a call, 303-696-1971. Does it make you more or less likely to vote for Bobert? I think this can hurt her in part of what you're saying because of the get your house in order before you go try to run our house. The idea of, and I think this is going to be a difficult message for her, especially with mothers. The idea that I need to move my family away from the ex. I need to give them a fresh start. I need to do this. And while I'm taking care of my kids as a single mom and we're doing this fresh start, I'm going to spend a majority of my time living out of a hotel in Washington, D.C. That's not necessarily a strong narrative. If it was a state house or a Senate job, you got a thing there because you can come home at night. That's the big problem that I have in this narrative about the national job. You don't get to come home at night. And that is a real difficult issue. Like, okay, one of her sons is having a problem with, you're a parent, you know how it is. It's going to be either the math teacher hates me, or I'm failing science, or the girl that I have a crush on says that I'm an ugly weasel, whatever that is. But it is the moment in their life in which everything is falling apart and they can't stop crying. They feel worthless. You can't be there to hug them. And this is a new start. They're going to a new school in a new neighborhood. And I hate to say this, and again, I apologize to my own children, that some of your last name is going to hang on them. I remember talking to Bill Owens, and he said one of the things that he did to his kids when they were growing up, he said he sat them down and said, listen, this isn't fair, but you can't go out there and do the same stupid things that other teenagers can, because when you do it, it's news. Not because you did it, but because you have my last name and our last name. So realize that you're going to be in situations where all the rest of your classmates, not a big deal if they did it, but you and I are on the news. And he said, it's not going to be fair, but you need to know that walking in. Same thing here. It's not fair, but they need to know it walking in. That name comes with some baggage. And I firmly believe that if I was a single parent, I can't take the job that takes me to Washington. I have to be there for the family. And there are 3 very specific instances in my own life where my wife and I turned down promotional opportunities to advance our career and to move because of the impact it would have on the kids. There was one phenomenal opportunity, but we sat down and said, you know what? This move with our kids at these ages, because she had gone through a move and I had too, switching schools. She had actually switched states. And we talked about what that impact was and what the impact was on her family and what we saw in other kids. And we said, it's just too negative. It's going to be too negative given this age range. So we're not going to do it. We turned that down. That's what you do. So again, Lauren can make whatever decision she feels is best for her family. But if I was a single parent, I'm not sure I'd go to Washington.
Getting on a plane?
Yeah. And
so
leaving, that's the tough part.
When I have conversations with candidates running, because I've seen it over and over again, I tell them, if you have a young family, you're going to run for federal office, you better move your family to DC.
Yep.
Getting on this plane, going back and forth, 50 weeks a year. I know it's not totally 50, but that amount of time, and leaving your family here, unless you have a really strong support network.
Yeah.
But even then, a divorce is just rife in politics because you just live separate lives. Exactly. Here's a good text message. Seriously, who's going to be taking care of the boys and grandbaby in Windsor? I think voters want to know that question, but I'll respond with this. Here's another good text from 2156. If she were a man having troubles with the ex, will we be saying the same thing?
Ooh. Oh, I like that question.
Ken
That's
Buck got
really
divorced.
Cool. Yeah, that's
Ken
really
Buck
cool.
got divorced, and not a lot of people were going, well,
Yeah.
can he keep his personal life together while being a congressman?
Here's the reason that I think, and it's unfortunate, but here's the reason that I think it is different. And I do think that everybody will look at it different. And this is why I look at it a little bit different, because of which parent has custody. If Buck had custody of the kids, and I don't know at that time.
His kids are out of the
Okay,
house.
well, if they're out of the house, that's different, because you're not having the same thing. Because for me, it's the new start and setting up new roots with a family. That's the issue that I've got questions about her being in Washington and being able to still water those roots here in Colorado. I have questions about that. If Buck's kids were out of the house, that's totally different based on that divorce. And sadly, I think if Lauren Bobert, instead of ovaries, had testicles, I do think we would look at this a little bit differently, in part because the likelihood of her getting custody is much less.
Mm-hmm.
And so the chances are the wife would get it. So, but if, again, if we switch genders, if the wife was having these addiction problems, then a male Bobert would absolutely, would absolutely get the kids. I would still have the same questions. That as a
who's
single father,
take care of them?
Yep. Who's going to take care of them? How are you? And especially Lauren leans into the grandmother thing. She brings the grandbaby with her to a lot of events. If that grandbaby is so special to you that you bring it with you on the events to spend time, then why are we going to go to Washington and leave it here? Why? Why would you do that? And again, I bet she has a reasonable answer to that, but I'm curious.
We're going to have to get her on the show to ask about that. One text message response, and they're pouring in, and feel free to fill up the lines on 303-696-1971. Is it fair to give Lauren Bobert the benefit of the doubt in light of the fact that she's just been granted a temporary restraining order against her ex-husband? Is it fair to even ask these questions? Is it sexist to ask these questions? What is she going to do? Can she do both?
Yeah.
Can she parent the kids well with full custody and be on an airplane 50 weeks a year, fundraising, traveling around, doing all the speaking engagements? Or she's a talented speaker. Here's a question that I've always had about this situation.
Mm-hmm.
She was our top-rated speaker 2 years in a row at the Western Conservative Summit. That's like out of 50 speakers with big names: Tulsi Gabbard, Eric Metaxas, Seth Dillon, Kayleigh McEnany. Lauren beat them all out.
Yeah.
There is a fine career in public speaking.
She has a charisma on stage that can't be taught.
Right.
What she does and how she presents herself on stage and when she's speaking, she does understand what's happening. And again, I've seen a lot of people do it, and there is something different. When somebody steps on that stage and they have it, you can see it.
Yep.
And she absolutely has it. It's almost as if, I would say it's almost like a light that goes on. That you can see them standing off stage and they step on and you can see the illumination. You can see George Carlin was like that a lot.
Yeah.
Very grumpy off stage, and then he got on stage and he's still grumpy, but all of a sudden everything turned on, and you had a lot of that. So that's what I see in her. I think she could do a very, very strong speaker gig. In fact, what I would look at is I would lean into her on motherhood, single mothers, and challenges of raising children in this century. That's where I think her sweet spot is. I know she still likes the politics, but if we want to talk about long-term speaking engagements, there are a plethora of mothers and daughters and organizations that would need someone to be the keynote speaker to talk about, oh my gosh, I had this huge high-profile job. And I'm just saying that if we want to turn to the speaker, how strong of a narrative? Again, Lauren, please do whatever you want, but how strong of a narrative is it where you say, I walked away from my job in Congress for my kids? That's a message if you're going to be a public speaker. I'm not saying that she should do it now. I'm just saying if you want a good story, if you want to be a public speaker that's going to get those giant checks, that's a wonderful narrative to talk about you going to Congress, your family falling apart, the difficulty that was personally for you, becoming a grandmother, parenting your kids while they're also being parents, and the challenges. And then this choice that you had a job you loved, but the thing that was more important was the choice with your family. That's a standing ovation. That's a standing ovation at those organizations.
And as somebody who pays speakers and negotiates this, and I've done this for nearly a decade now, she would fall in the range of $20,000 per speech on the high side, $5,000 on the low side. $5,000 for a speech. I mean, that's not on the low side.
Yeah, on the low side. And realize that if you're really good at this professional speaking thing,
right,
what you end up doing is you have several boilerplates.
Yes, you give the same speech.
Yeah, you have,
right.
And I have a friend that does this.
I know that
on the regular, and so he has like categories.
Yeah,
and he has 3 speeches in each category, and he doesn't deliver the same exact speech. But what he does is when he's doing it, he goes, "Okay, here's the category I need. Here are the 3 speeches that I prepared, and then what makes sense for this audience." And then he opens up a new document and cuts and pastes.
Yeah,
and he goes, "Here it is. I'm going to take all these 3 speeches because he has 3 direct stories, and that way." He gets to tell the same story, but it's different every time. So, but it's a great way to do it. And how efficient is that? Imagine if you could have just a bunch of little speeches sitting around, and then people would call you and go, "Hi, would you like several $1,000s?" And you're like, "Give me a sec. Cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste. Can I have your check, sir or ma'am?" That would be brilliant.
It's not a bad gig,
No.
and you spend most of the time with your family.
Yeah.
Some text messages insinuating that she's selfish, self-serving, disingenuous.
Let's have that conversation. 303-696-1971. Let's have that conversation. Why do you feel that way? What's the selfish choice? And let's talk that through.
Is she the best to represent Congressional District 4? Did she do a good job in CD3? She's already been a congressperson.
Yeah.
And I remember watching her run against Scott Tipton, and it was a breath of fresh air. Very exciting, right? Because who knew what Scott Tipton did?
Yeah.
Right? You had no sense of what that guy was doing. And then Bobert comes in. She's going to fight the establishment.
Yep.
She's going to stand strong for conservative values. But did we run out of runway on that? And people are going, I don't like reading about my congressperson in the news anymore.
Yeah.
In fact, I just want you to answer the phone when I give you a call. 303-696-1971. Is Lauren Bobert the right pick for Congressional District 4? Friends, we've got a big show. When we come back, George Brauchler is going to be here at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. 9 o'clock hour will include Mark Hillman on Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. So packed, jam-packed show plus news, weather, Blake Olson, all of that. So stick around. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
I don't know if I know this song. Bill's having a good time.
Oh yeah, this is great. This is Toby Keith. This is Stays in Mexico. Again, I'm a music nerd, so yeah.
We lost a great American today.
Yeah.
Toby Keith, dead, I believe, 61 years old. 62, stomach cancer.
Took him quickly too. That's awful, and
That
not
is
an easy
rough.
one. That's and surprised that he kind of kept it quiet. It wasn't like well known in the industry, and it's hard. It just right here. Oh, so good. How could you not just dance and sing along with this? So good. Yeah, it's so good.
A real loss for the music industry.
Real loss.
Sad. And for America. He's a great patriot.
Yeah.
We're talking Lauren Bobert here. News breaking yesterday that she's been granted a temporary restraining order against her ex-husband. My question to you, and a whole lot of text messages, and feel free to call in and share your thoughts on this. Does this at all change your perspective about her? Does it make her a little bit more sympathetic? Here's another issue related to her, was her behavior at the Beetlejuice place, right?
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't really care what you're going through in your personal life if you're the victim, because that was not victim type of actions.
Yeah.
Right? That was her own personality. It was sad. And the pushback I got primarily came from other women.
Yeah.
In other conservative women that I work with, who felt like that was disrespectful to the idea of motherhood, right? You're a mom acting like that out in public. It's disrespectful to the idea that you are a Christian, because Christians shouldn't be acting like that. It's disrespectful to the idea that you're a professional woman, right? So women that work hard in the profession want to be taken seriously. And the idea that you're just kind of acting the way she did at the Beetlejuice event was disrespectful. And then it's disrespectful to the idea that you are a member of Congress. We should hold those folks to high esteem.
Yeah.
So does the fact that she's facing such a personal crisis make her more sympathetic in that light? Or should we just hold her accountable for her own actions?
It's the Beetlejuice thing for me. The issue I've got there is, yes, her behavior, and not what you want from a professional woman, not what you want from a congressperson. The thing for me that really bothers me is the behavior related to the woman behind her.
Yeah,
because,
the pregnant mom.
Yeah, and whether or not the woman is pregnant, the woman leaned forward and asked for a change in behavior.
Yeah.
Said, hey, what you are doing is bothering me. Can you not do this? Especially the thing for me is the vaping inside that closed area right in front of somebody.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that bothers me. I mean, if we're going to a Grateful Dead show, complaining about the smoke and the smell in the air, that's different because of the expectation. That's not where I am at Beetlejuice for whatever reason, whether it be vape or cigarettes or marijuana, it doesn't matter. That to me is irrelevant. It's the location and the fact that she had been asked by another person to kindly change that behavior, and she didn't care. That hurts me. And then this is the example I'm going to give you. My youngest daughter and my wife went to go see it. Yes, I'm going to bring up Taylor Swift again. They went to the Taylor Swift 1999 concert, and there were some kids, and I won't say kids because they seem to be, according to my wife, between the ages of 18 and 23 that were behind them. For whatever reason, these kids during a portion of the concert started yelling as loud as they could and sometimes screaming the lyrics. That hurt the experience for other people around them.
Right.
My wife asked them twice nicely, please, my daughter's trying to listen. A little bit quieter. They got louder, and a couple of them leaned into it. And it wasn't until my wife had to cup her hands over my daughter's ears because my daughter's like, it's giving me a headache because they're yelling so loud, that finally one of the kids in the group slapped the other one and said, stop it, okay? Stop it. Don't you see what she has to do? Stop it. Then it did. Finally, one of them realized what was going on in public and corrected the rest of them. And that's the thing for me. If your personal behavior, you don't care how it impacts the other people around you, I got an issue with you. Regardless of whether or not she's out on a date and single mom, I got an issue because when her personal behavior clashed in a setting like that with something else that someone was doing, and it wasn't like what Bobert was doing was acceptable in that location, I got a problem with that. It makes me question some of the decisions you make. Makes me question some ethics and morals about where you think you are, and in all honesty, like some of the texters said, the selfishness.
But she's been a good fighter for conservative
Yes,
issues in the state
absolutely.
of Colorado. So
Yeah.
let's look at the other side of this,
Yeah,
okay?
please do. Yeah.
Right on voting, on her leadership, she wasn't just kind of a wallflower that you had no idea what was going on. She was a strong, bold leader on our issues. Give her another 2 years.
What do you think?
That's one of the thinking, right?
Yeah,
right. Like,
I like that pause.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice was a personal failing. She apologized for that. She went
Yeah.
around. Now, initially, she kind of brushed it off, which I think was a problem. Eventually, she got there.
Yeah. As Nixon taught us, it's the cover up, not the crime.
Right.
So you get caught, do the apology.
Right. But
yeah.
she's a real fighter for our issues. And you put her in that position, and she's going to go to town against the radical left. No hold bars. She's going to throw the elbows. She's going to fight hard. Let's give her another 2 years, because at least it's fun to watch the left squirm a little bit.
Yeah, and she is good at getting attention. She knows how to, put forward the conservative ideals. The difficulty she's going to have is that enough to differentiate herself from everybody else? Because if that is the number one characteristic, that she's a fighter, that she, is, if that's it, then tell me why the rest of the people that are challenging her in that district can't do the same thing. What is
They
it
just
about
don't
her?
got the personality.
I don't know.
I don't know half of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I get it too. Yeah. But there's one in there. And again, I'm not endorsing or saying Bobert should or should not. And I'm not endorsing the other candidates. The one person that I've seen so far that might have that personality would be Holtorf. He seems to have that person. Again,
the man shot by his own brother.
Yes. Now, and again, I'm not endorsing. I'm not politics. But if you're talking big personalities that can get attention, Holtorf's got that. He's got that in spades. Yeah. And so he could do that. It would be different. Would he be as effective as Lauren? I don't know. I don't know if he would be as effective getting on national TV, and I don't know if he'd be effective in pulling some of the constituency and especially the House further to the right. Would he be effective? I'm not saying he isn't very conservative. I'm just saying, could he be as effective doing it? I don't know. And that is a question. That is a question we got.
303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. We'd love to hear from the listeners on this. Is the fact judge looked at the evidence, said that Jason Bobert needs a temporary restraining order against him, make her more sympathetic? Do you understand what she's going through? Do you think it's right that she should be in Congress? In light of the fact that she has full custody of her kids, it doesn't seem like they're moving to Washington, D.C. They're going to live in Windsor. So she's going to be on an airplane. Is it right to even judge a woman by that? We probably wouldn't judge a man by that. But you said, Billy, we should. Yeah. So let us know.
We should, based on single parenthood. Yeah, not in female, male. The issue for me is if you are a single parent and you're taking responsibility for the kids, I think that should play into the decision, again, based on the age of the kids, whether or not they're in the home or not. That plays into the decision as to whether or not I feel you need to go to Washington.
Lots of text messages here. What bothered me about Bobert's action at the Beetlejuice events was not so much her behavior, but the fact she blatantly lied about it and pulled the "do you know who I am" bit to others. Had she not lied and just came out and admitted her behavior, I would have more respect for her, but she blew it. Plus, she never really apologized for her behavior.
Yeah, that whole thing and the "do you know who I am" thing, that really bothers me. And I hate the fact that she pulled that. Side note, there is a well-known now Fox TV reporter that when I was doing some covering of Rockies baseball, pulled that in a bar because we were there for an event and for an announcement, and they were doing some stuff, and he did the whole "do you know who I am?" And the bar manager's like, "No. Do you think I care?" Right. One of those. That was fun to see. Yeah.
Another text message, once someone says, "Do you know who I am?" they are done.
Yeah, good point.
Alexa, not thrilled about some of the recent things Lauren Bobert did, but unlike most elected politicians, she actually went to D.C. and is fighting for us. Remember how she drove a couple of hours and stood up to Beto? That's when she really shined.
Well,
remember?
That was her coming out party. That was the thing that made her, that put her on the map, was the Beto thing. Now, Alexa, I'd be curious. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Could anybody else in that race do the same thing? Yeah. And I think that's the interesting conversation, because if she is this great fighter, etc., then convince me that somebody else who does wear the same jersey of the same team couldn't be there and be the same fighter. The idea being, again, we can have lots of examples of people saying, hey, I'll go to Washington and I'll fight for you more. Everybody's going to say that. So is it something that only she can do? I'm not certain. I'm not certain of that.
Alexa continues. Then when AOC wore the white dress with the words tax the rich, Lauren wore the red dress that said, let's go Brandon on it. By the way, the irony of AOC's dress message was hysterical, given that it was done by a designer and not even a cheap dress.
And where she wore it.
Right.
With a bunch of rich people.
AOC,
If she was wearing that thing in a soup kitchen, okay, I gotcha. But you're going to the Met Gala?
Right.
Stop it.
Right.
Stop it.
It did get a lot of attention, though.
Oh, God, yeah.
I trust Lauren more than Buck. Buck does not represent the people anymore. Alexa says, all right, so I'm going to throw this out there. You have another woman in the race.
Yeah.
Who raised her kids. I think she still has one or two at home, maybe one at home, but most of them are out of the house. She's solid conservative, but she's not a kind of in your face, punch them in the face type of conservative. So do you like that kind of balance that you find with Deborah Flora? Former host here at 710 KNUS. Obviously, a grassroots conservative is probably right on all the issues, but she's not going to go wear a "Let's Go Brandon" dress to stay the union, right?
Well,
so I
bet if we talk to, I bet we could make that happen. I mean, you and I think could be persuasive, right? Conversation, we might be able to do that.
Deborah would. So, do you like that element of kind of conservatism? The fact she's going to be there on the issues, but isn't going to be as bombastic, doesn't have all the family challenges that Lauren does in the same race. Deborah and Jonathan, both very close friends, support each other, strong, stable marriage. Does all that matter when it comes to a decision that you're going to have to make with regards to CD4? So if you missed it, news breaking that Lauren Bobert was granted a temporary restraining order against her ex-husband. We're up against a commercial break. Marcia, when we come back.
Oh, no, let's take Marcia now.
We want to take Marcia now?
Yeah, we do. I don't want to.
All right.
Yeah, Marcia's got a busy morning, and so let's honor her time because she's got something to say. Yeah, Marcia, thanks for joining us.
Hi. One thing I want to say is that, like my mom once told me, once you're married to somebody, they consider you their wife forever. So the fact that they're divorced, he considers her his wife. Oh, yeah. And she went to Beetlejuice carrying herself the way she did. The effect it had on him and their sons is awful. But domestic violence is no joke. Yeah. I mean, you see online every day where somebody has killed somebody who had a restraining order on them. So anybody around Lauren's life is in jeopardy because this guy is on a mission to do her in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth there, Marcia, because you see it in Jason's Facebook post that he kind of has this possessive nature over Lauren. So does this make her more sympathetic in your eyes, Marcia?
Oh no, because I was a Bobert fan, but the way she carried herself as a professional woman, oh no, you carry yourself with class in the public eye. And what you do away from the public is one thing. So to lower her standards, it's a black eye on any professional woman. And I had a situation as a youngster where my mom pulled something similar to that. It haunted my brother until he died.
Wow.
Because the kids can you imagine what the kids are saying to her once they find out they're Boberts? She's a joke. And especially the Democrats, they're like, are you serious? Republicans are supposed to be the party of conservatism, of family values. She presented herself as family values, and to hurt her sons like that. And to me, as far as what she's done for the Republican Party, she knew all of that when she put this stuff on the line. And I think her husband's behavior might have been triggered by her behavior.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Now, with Bobert moving into the third, how would you handicap just moving in the district? How would you handicap her chances? What do you think the chances are of her going after the fourth?
I wouldn't vote for her if I was in that district because if she's a fighter, you stay where you are and finish the race.
That's interesting. So for you, it really is. It's a personal behavior, but it's also the movement. It's the idea that the people that sent her to Congress, she then moved out of that district because she doesn't think she can win there, and she's going to go to a different district, that she's not finishing the race for the people that sent her there in the first place.
Also,
that's interesting.
If she's so afraid of her husband, why is she going to D.C. and leaving her kids with him?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Hey, Marcia, I thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please,
Have a good
you too.
No,
Have
that
a
was-
fantastic day. Please give us a call in the future. That is wonderful.
That was an important perspective.
Yeah.
Because
Something I hadn't thought
the
of.
sense I got from Marcia, she was a professional woman. She takes that role very, very seriously. I wondered if Beetlejuice hadn't happened,
Yeah.
if Lauren, she would be
Is
a
it
Lauren
different?
supporter. I
Yeah.
think she still has that concern over the idea of leaving CD3,
Yeah.
right, and not staying and fighting. But this is complicated, right?
That's interesting.
I've known Lauren personally. This is a hard time she's going through.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can't blame it entirely on just, her own personal decisions. She's
Yeah.
facing a real crisis
And
within her
unfortunately,
family.
she's going through a crisis that so many families do that is
Right.
so difficult, but she has the added pressure of having to do it in public. And
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. That really makes everything so much more difficult and so much more complicated. Because like we talked about earlier, that every time her husband acts a fool, she's going to be in the news, not necessarily because of the stuff that she did, but because of the connection. And I thought that was really interesting with Marcia talking about what appears to be the possessive nature of the former
Right.
Mr. Bobert, that he does seem to think that, no, you still mine. And that may motivate some of the, and it would make sense why, when we may be inebriated or in an altered mental state, that we would make choices that we might not normally do sober. And again, I hope he gets help. So.
Text message 5600. Lauren Bobert belongs in Congress where she can kick Democrat commie butt, shut down rhinos, fight for MAGA, and send the illegal alien invaders back to where they came from. So Bobert primary supporters. We'll continue this conversation when we come back. So let us know the fact that she's been granted a temporary restraining order against her ex-husband. Does that change your perspective on what she's dealing with? Is she becoming more of a sympathetic figure, that it's not just all personal behavior like we saw at Beetlejuice, but there's a crisis taking place there? And was she so effective as a voice for strong conservative values that we should send her back, ignore these challenges that she's facing, or at least be sympathetic to her, not blame it all on personal responsibility, but give her a second chance to go back to Congress? And as this text messenger said, kick Democrat commie butt, which she did a good job of. So You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Text messages filling up, as well as the phone lines. Don't give me this quote, Lauren Bobert's going through hard times, unquote. We all go through hard times. How we deal with ourselves through said hard times shows our character. Bobert showed hers. She's also the class definition of a carpetbagger. She took her last district for granted. Time to go get a real job. Alexa reminding us that Jason has a lot of problems in the run-up to this. 2156, my dad says he will vote for Lauren Boebert because both Republicans and Democrats don't like her and are spending millions to attack her. He thinks this proves she is one of the only members of Congress actually fighting for the people. We're going to the lines. Frank, think Boebert's done?
I think she's done. I think that her 15 minutes are up, half an hour ago. I've always felt, and I've never met her. All I can see is what I see on TV and in the papers, or what used to be papers, is that she has always been in over her head. And at some point, a lot of this stuff just catches up with you. I don't like any of these performance artist politicians, and of whom she is one of the premier examples. Of AOC is another one. And I just think it plays to this level of just ignorance and immaturity in the voting populace, and it doesn't help advance the cause of anything. It's just it's stupid. It's immature, and I really think what you see with Lauren is what you see in the Beetlejuice theater. When people aren't looking, when she thinks she's alone, when she thinks she isn't in the spotlight, that's when you get the real Lauren, and that's her. She's an immature, insecure mess. And I think that I sympathize with her domestic situation, but, and getting us restraining orders and anything new in a divorce proceeding. But, come on, it's move on. I mean, you can't just carpetbag from district to district and think that you're still the bomb. Go away. Just go away.
Frank, I really appreciate the direct and honest feedback. Do you think, would you appreciate a representative that you didn't read about in the news all that much, that just was kind of doing basically constituent services, maybe voted your values most of the time, not all the time, but wasn't out there really charging hard against the radical left?
Yeah, I don't want to see him in the news that much. I mean, I can see it happening here and there, but I don't need to see somebody acting like a house ape at a State of the Union address with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't need somebody wearing something that says "Let's go Brandon" on her dress. I mean, what is this? Did she just lack attention as a kid? What's going on? Did her parents not take care of her enough, and that's why she's acting out now? I mean, there's any number of weird psychological reasons for what we're seeing, but primarily it's an immaturity. And it is performance artistry, and I don't like it.
Now,
that's
Frank,
not part of your job description.
Now, I like the idea of, you talked about the performance artist politician, and I love the fact you bring up AOC as an example as well. I just want to delve into that a little bit. Why do you think we've gotten towards this idea of a performance artist politician, where sometimes what you have on Instagram is more important than what you're hearing and talking to in your constituency?
I think it's just a symptom of a kind of a dumbing down of the electorate.
Okay.
And I really think that's what because it plays to people's ignorance. It plays to kind of like this microwaved news cycle. It plays to all of that. People don't go and actually figure things out for themselves. They want to be spoon-fed sound bites instead of actually doing something to figure out who they should vote for or why.
Yeah, work
they
is
just
hard.
Correct. And I hate to say it, but it's kind of, look, I mean, the left has by and large been responsible for dumbing down the school system for a long time, for decades now.
Yeah.
And I think they did it in part with an intent to try to foster or grow an electorate that they could, easily schmooze over. And unfortunately, it's blown back on them, because you do get the same ignorant performance artistry and people who lap it up with a spoon on the left and the right.
Yeah.
And it's equally bad to both.
That's great.
Frank,
Thank you so much.
I really
Wow.
appreciate you giving us a call. Frank's
really cool.
line is going to be open when
give us
we
a ring
come
again,
back.
man. That was really cool. Performance artist politician. I like that, man. I'm going to remember that one. Thank you, Frank. Call us again, please.
Frank's line is going to be open when we return from this commercial break. George Brauchler's back in the studio with a big announcement at the top of the 8 o'clock hour, so you're not going to want to miss that. Plus, It's Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. Breaking news today as well. Toby Keith, the great country music star, has passed away at the age of 62. So you're going to get news, weather, commentary, and political leadership all in the next few hours. So stick around. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Top of the 8 o'clock hour in the Mile High City, February 6th, 2024. It's a nice day today. Enjoy it because later this week we're going to get some snow. Today, high of 54, chance of rain on Wednesday, rain-snow mix. Thursday, partly cloudy, 44 on Friday, and then snowy weekend again. I spent 7 hours driving around this last weekend in the snow.
Seems like you made some poor life choices.
I put my kids in basketball leagues and theater.
Again, that's on
what
you.
I do.
That's on you.
Yep, and we live in Colorado, so that's just what you do.
Yep.
Hey, it's Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. Pulled some of my very favorite quotes from him, which we're going to get to in a second, but we're going to do news, so let's turn it over to Blake Olson.
All righty. Appreciate it, Jeff and Bill. 34 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 50s. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Country music star, superstar, that is, Toby Keith, has passed away at the age of 62. He had been undergoing chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery after being diagnosed with stomach cancer in 2021, Keith sold more than 40 million records over the course of his career. Heavy rain continues to pound Southern California and San Diego, now taking a beating. The National Weather Service says by the end of the day today, normally sunny and dry San Diego will see more than an inch of rain near the border. Then lighter rain around a half inch per day is in the forecast for Wednesday and Thursday, in case you're headed to San Diego or Southern California. Nevada is holding its Republican presidential primary today, and Republican Party-run caucuses on Thursday. This after the Democratic governor at the time in 2021 and Republicans started fighting over scheduling and procedures. Republican frontrunner Donald Trump is expected to garner all of the delegates in the caucuses, while Nikki Haley will appear on the primary ballot but won't get any delegates. Suncor Refinery in Commerce City has been ordered to pay a historic $10.5 million in penalties and improvement projects for causing air pollution. It's the largest ever settlement for air pollution against a single facility in Colorado state history. While some people say it's a step in the right direction, many locals living near the refinery are still experiencing health problems and say it simply isn't enough. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center says the risk of avalanches is currently high across the mountains. This past weekend, the winter storm system brought several feet of snow, making parts of the snowpack unstable. All right, the San Francisco 49ers are not happy with the practice field that they're using at UNLV ahead of Sunday's Super Bowl. Team staff inspected the grass field last week, and they say it is too soft. The field has already been inspected and approved by the NFL.
I blame Taylor Swift.
The NFL, you like it?
No, I think Taylor Swift's responsible. I think that's it. It's part of the conspiracy.
Yeah,
it's part of the fix. The fix is in for the Chiefs, and that's it. Yet again, Taylor has wielded her power.
It all makes sense.
Exactly. It all makes sense now.
Where's George Tomo, the field doctor, when you need him?
Exactly.
You remember him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He'd come in, he'd fix everything.
Yeah, and I think he was a 49ers guy. But the Niners, their field was in terrible shape every season in the early 2000s and into the 90s, in the late 90s into the 2000s. So the turf is an issue, but of course the Colorado connection, Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, Cherry Creek, and Valor. I would imagine a lot of Colorado football fans going for the Niners, and because everyone wants the Chiefs to lose, for numerous reasons.
Unless you are a female between the ages of 27 and 13. Other than that, you're a Niners fan in Colorado.
That's right. Why would you be a Chiefs fan?
Yeah, exactly. Why would you do that to yourself?
Absolutely. All right, it's 30 in Lafayette, and let's see, 31 in Lone Tree, and 34 in Denver. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Elvis has not left the building. Elvis has arrived. Jorge Brauchler.
It's good to be here, man.
He's back in. We got his mic up?
Well, yeah, I figured we'd be like old times. I keep the mic off for a little while.
About the first segment or two.
Yeah, why change things?
So, George, last week we were all speculating as to what you were doing, and we came up with some great ideas. You
I
and
think so, too.
Marlon, the first gentleman, we're going to join together. Dog grooming, mobile dog grooming.
He said no.
Elizabeth
And no
Epps
means no, it turns
needs
out.
a cleaning boy. He decided against that as well. So
Yeah, she wouldn't let me in the house. She's become a bit of a hoarder, a shut-in, I guess. So she's just a lot of DoorDash. Yeah, go ahead,
good.
sorry.
George, give us the news.
First off, man, congratulations on the great kickoff for the show. I've been listening the last couple mornings. I wish I could tell you it's all 4 hours, but I couldn't even listen to all 4 hours when I was actually on the radio. So there was no way to do that. So, but I commented on Jeff just as I popped in here. My God, you got Billy to not wear a hat.
I know.
How did that? Was that Crowley that did that?
He showed up yesterday with a haircut, fresh haircut, new clothes.
Oh my
and all that.
goodness, man!
I lost a bet. That's the reason.
He's wearing. Listen, he overnight. It's a new Billy. No hat, collared shirt, showered within the last 72 hours. It's like it's a completely different Bill.
Even my underwear is clean. I'm talking about this.
Holy
is like,
crap!
this
You're
is like
wearing
new
underwear.
chapter. I know
That's
exactly.
amazing.
It is so huge.
And Jeff, this has been going well. I love the conversations that you've had.
Thanks.
I did not expect you to go down the Killer Mike road, but
I
that
didn't
turned out
either.
to be pretty good stuff.
The random email I got like 5 years ago. That was like, hey, you want to have Killer Mike at the Western Conservative Summit? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
This has now come back.
Yeah.
And this is not on my bingo card as to what I was going to spend my
Who
mornings
would
talking
name
about.
their kid though Killer Mike? It seems like you're
Well,
really
it's-
putting it in a tough spot.
Well,
He's got to be tough.
Well,
Once,
it's-
you know,
He's going to end up in front of you with that.
yeah,
name.
No,
he can't be the guy in the band.
it's
You
a
can't have
parent-
Killer Mike on tuba.
No, see,
you know what I mean?
It's a parent that has a dream and a goal. You just don't see the vision. That's the issue. Is the
I
parent had a
don't.
vision.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And you have your own news guy now. Like,
I
man, this
know.
play. Of course, once I leave, then it really gets nice. I mean, it looks like you've changed. Well, virtually nothing else, but
Yeah.
otherwise, it looks really, really good.
Blake is awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, I'm
great to have
jealous.
his
I'm jealous.
expertise.
I had
Sports
Billy
flavor.
who was rocking everything. Billy was like the Swiss Army knife of radio. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, oh, do you need one of those? He's right there. So
Still
Figure
doing a
it
lot
out.
of that.
it's great. It's great
Yeah.
to see you guys. I feel a little bit like staring at someone who has a lazy eye because I'm not sure which one of you to look at. through the-
Not over here.
Just the camera.
Yeah.
Just the
Yeah.
camera.
Not in here.
So what's going on?
Well, let's get to what you're going to be doing. You had a big announcement, and
I
the
did.
leftist blogs all went crazy.
Did
which
they? I
is
haven't seen them.
Oh
I
my
saw-
gosh, it is a wonderful sign that you are right over the target, man. Oh no, we're actually gonna have law and order in this state. What do we do?
That's right. Well, I made the decision, some would call it reckless, to run for district attorney for the brand new 23rd Judicial District. For those that haven't followed the really, really sexy facts surrounding prosecution in Colorado, we divide up our prosecution power differently than a lot of other places do. We don't do it by counties. A lot of, like Indiana has 99 counties, 99 elected prosecutors. We don't do that. In Colorado, we do it by judicial district. They run along county lines. Some are one county jurisdictions like Denver or Pueblo or Mesa County. Most have at least another county attached to them. And the last time we had a brand new judicial district was in the early 1960s. So 60 years ago.
Wow.
We created the 17th through the 22nd judicial districts. Obviously, the 18th, Arapahoe, Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln was created back then. And for the first time in all those years, the legislature said, let's cut up the 18th. Let's let Arapahoe County be its own standalone judicial district, and we'll take Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln and make it the brand new 23rd. Well, I happen to live in Douglas. I've been a resident of Douglas for 28 years. I didn't have to move into that jurisdiction to run for it. Like I've been there forever. Kids all go to school there, do business there. I mean, that's just where we are. That's where Ave Maria is. So it stands up January of 2025. DAs are the only elected law enforcement officer elected at the same time as the president. So we'll be on the same ballot as President Trump and President Biden. Have I said that too prematurely? Do we know if that's?
It sounds like you're bragging.
I don't know if I'm presupposing that, but
He's going to be at the top. It's going to be a pick between those three, actually.
it's funny. Yeah, it's
you know.
just enough down ballot that you could lose it. You know what I mean? You could forget all about it. Right? Where's the DA thing right here? I see dog catcher. That's about it. So yeah, so I decided to run, and it's exciting.
Why get back
That's
into
great.
prosecuting? Why do you like that so much?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question. Listen, I love the radio. It's, as you know, you're already finding this
It's fun.
out. It's a great gig.
Really fun.
The hours are oppressive and the supporting staff is abusive.
You're welcome.
But other than that, it really is. It's wonderful. And you get to interact with people and I think part of the discussions that I had with myself and others was, could I make a bigger difference on the radio or in the courtroom?
Yeah.
Where
because I am not going into a courtroom anytime
right.
soon.
Well, not voluntarily.
Right,
You're right. Like if you show up
which
there.
is going to be interesting because I'm going to live in your county now, and that'll just be awkward. When, you figure out what I'm really doing at the ranch.
You? Yeah. Are you coming in here to just watch? Oh my God, you're at the big table. But I miss it, man. I've never lost the passion for it, and you could hear it when you listen to the show over the last couple of years when we talk about criminal justice issues and public safety and law and order. I can never stray too far from it. And honestly, the challenge of starting something that there's no playbook for, 60 years, you've never done this. It's just simply not a job that you learn as you do it. It's not an on-the-job training position. You don't take someone who's like, I've always wanted to be a prosecutor. I think I'll come in at the C-suite level. I mean, that would be reckless for us who live in that jurisdiction. I think the other thing too that we've seen is there has been such a hyper politicization of some of these prosecutor offices nationally.
Right.
Alvin Bragg, anyone? Fonnie Willis, anyone?
Because George Soros is writing their campaign checks.
Well, and he has had really an outsized impact on a lot of these races, but those few things have, I think, tainted the public perception of what prosecution is in criminal justice. And I would like to return us to the idea that, and Kellner does this great as the 18th, return us to the idea that prosecution and criminal justice is not a partisan issue. You can have different approaches to how you do it, but nobody should ever think, oh, you're being prosecuted because you're a political adversary of so-and-so. And we have that going on in America right now. And that is poison for a rule of law society. And we are a rule of law society. So I want to do this thing. I can't tell you if it's a 1 or 2 term thing for me, but I absolutely am invested in wanting to get this thing off the ground, make it the best damn DA's office in the state. And you know what? Predictably, I would be the only Republican DA left in the metro area.
Wow. Is Kellner not still in the metro area?
Kellner's decided not to run again for Arapahoe.
Oh, really?
For obvious reasons. And that is and I haven't, had him say, this is why I'm not running. Arapahoe's blue. But I mean, it, which is crazy for you and I to say out loud, because there was a time where it was the most Republican county out there.
2012, I was working on the Romney campaign. And Jeffco and Arapahoe County were the swing counties where we spent all of our time. We banked everything in Douglas. We banked everything in El Paso, and we went hard. We did rallies at Fiddler's Green. We did rallies out in Jeffco. Red Rocks, all that stuff. Romney coming in a whole bunch. Trump's not even going to visit Colorado. And but he might with the requirements of the state party. But I mean, it is shocking how much that's changed. So what is Kellner going to do? Do you know?
I probably, if I had to guess, I mean, the guy's still very public service minded. The guy's still a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Reserve. I mean, so he hasn't lost his sense of, hey, I want to do something to make the country and my community better. But I will bet that it takes a turn. I bet he's a stay-at-home dad. No, I bet I'll bet he ends up practicing law somewhere in the private sector, fighting for victims one way or the other. That's just how the guy's built.
So you're going to be it. In the Denver metro area,
that would be
the only Republican.
The only one. It would go from, so the 18th right now is covers 1.1 plus million Coloradans. That makes it number 1 and not even a close second, right?
Really?
Once they divide that up, you will create the 3rd most populous, that's Arapahoe County, and the 7th most populous, that's Douglas County, Elbert, and Lincoln jurisdictions. And number 1 would go down south to our good buddy Michael Allen in the fighting 4th Judicial District. And then Denver would be number 2. Out of all those counties, Michael's a Republican. I'd be the Republican DA if I'm elected, if the people choose me for the 23rd. But then everything else, man, Jeffco, Adams, Denver, Arapahoe. I mean, can you imagine? It's just, I know.
But it's part of that compounding crime problem that we have. I mean, I in Lakewood, I went into a Target, Walmart. It's like walking into a prison. You have to go past security guards, past a gate there right at the entrance. And then to leave It's like you're pat down before you can leave the store.
It's such an insightful thing to point out because it gets me to something else I want to do. I want to take a page out of what we know works. Some of the people are going to be like, that's old school. Yeah, it is old school in this way. If you look at what Aurora did with two big issues, retail theft and auto theft, what they basically said is, we don't trust the state anymore. It's not, no offense to John Kellner, because it's judges that are not sentencing people to anything.
Really?
They're not putting them on bonds or anything. So Aurora came along and said, you know what? Screw you, state. We're going to pass our own municipal ordinances that mandate jail for a very first automobile theft. And they've seen like a 27% decrease in their motor vehicle theft. They've done the same thing with retail theft. Jurinsky did that. Bill Zvonik, I think, was pushing the other one. And I want to have that same approach. I mean, hear me out here. I want to have a message to the community that there's really one crime that we know exists from when we're kids, right? Property. You know what you own and you know what someone else owns. There's very few mistakes. You know when some kid is playing with your Tonka truck, right? And you can be super gracious and give them consent to play with it. Or you can say, hell no, that's my Tonka truck, right? Like, we understand property here in America. And it's part of what makes it. There has been an assault on property rights on a whole bunch of different levels. We've seen it, but we've done it with this lax approach to criminal justice. Oh, did you steal from someone else? Oh, well, I mean, Leslie Herod, who I've dealt with on a whole bunch of things, actually said at one point when advocating for no incarceration for people that damaged property up there. Remember those riots up in Denver that we called peaceful protests and all that stuff? She said, well, I mean, they're not really victims. They're not really out of pocket because they have insurance to cover them. See, it's that mentality that erodes away our freedom. When we stop caring about property as something that you and I can own and exclude others from and all that and get money for, there goes liberty. And so I want to have a discussion with law enforcement and the judges about a very simple notion. If you steal here, you will go to jail here. Now, it doesn't mean, hey, you steal a Snickers bar and you go to jail for a year or prison. I'm not talking about that, but I am talking about something where guaranteed you steal, you will be arrested. You will go to jail. And depending upon how much you steal, you should expect to go to jail for this many days or weeks or whatever. Steal a car, kiss 30 days gone, 60 days gone. We can come up with a discussion on the number. Steal something small, overnight. Do you see what I'm saying? I want there to be predictability so that when people cross that border from Arapahoe into Douglas, they know they're in a place where if you take from us, we're going to take something from you too.
Wait. This sounds crazy. You mean you're actually talking about the idea of holding people personally responsible for their choices and then having consequences for bad ones?
Wait,
that sounds ridiculous. Have you not been paying attention?
When you say it like that, it sounds like it makes way more sense than when I said it. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Haven't you looked at what all the liberal DAs have been doing? I mean, as you talk, friend of the old show, Phil Weiser. Haven't you taken his
wait, the old show? Yeah, I think he's probably going to be a friend of this show too.
He probably is. Yeah, the idea that we can steal 3 cars and until they get 3, it's not a big deal. I mean,
really? It was 3 to 4 in a 3-month period.
Exactly.
Then you deny them some kind of bond because now you get the feeling they're just not getting it.
Yeah, wow. Then maybe if there's a consequence, that there might be a corrective behavior. That's weird.
So
that's a weird concept you got here, sir. I don't know about this.
It's something else too. Someone's going to say, well, what if you can't get the judges to go along? And listen, I anticipate appearing in front of these judges a lot. So I just want to be on the record by saying they are some of the smartest, most attractive people, not just in the law, but perhaps on the planet Earth. I think that's undeniable. But let me say this too. We do have the ability to retain judges or choose not to retain judges. We're not stuck with the judges that Governor Polis gives us. And while I give them a lot of leeway to make decisions, even ones that I disagree with, if you had judges in a community that had adopted a certain approach to justice and the judges weren't on board, we're not hostage to those judges. And you can read into that what you want, but I do think we need to have a much more integrated, holistic approach to this instead of this siloed look at it. I mean, you can do everything great as a cop. You can even do everything great as a prosecutor. But the way the laws are set up now, they've taken away a ton of the mandatory jail, mandatory prison time. If you don't have judges on board, it means absolutely nothing, because they're the ones that can dismantle all that hard work and turn it into hugs and coloring books for repeat criminals. And we just can't tolerate that.
I think what's appealing, George, is that there's a lot of people in Colorado that are looking for that sheriff to ride into town, right? They're looking for Wyatt Earp to come in and go, that's enough. here's the law, and you got to leave town if you're not going to abide by it, right?
You're right. And here's one of I take pride in this. When I took over the 18th, we took a much more vigorous, aggressive approach with drug dealers.
Good.
Much more aggressive. And some of the best things I'd hear, some of my guys would come in that would work wires, wiretaps and stuff like that. And the feds, by the way, this is another point of pride. Feds would come to us and say, we'd rather bring our cases to you. One, you can get us up on wires a lot quicker. Otherwise, they have to go through the Department of Justice out to DC, and 18 billion bureaucrats have to figure out whether to do this. We can do it very quickly. We can get them up on wires. And then when they generated a case, we'd punch these dudes right in the face when it comes to prosecution. And the feds, big deal with indictments, and then they let people go out the back door with misdemeanors or small pleas. It's their pattern. So one of the things that was great is every once in a while, one of my investigators or detectives would come in and they'd be like, you got to read this part of the transcript from the wire. And there'd be a wire where they'd be trying to lure a guy to do a drug deal down in Arapahoe rather than Denver because they knew we would light them up. And there were guys on the wire who'd be like, I ain't going south of Colfax. I'm not going into Arapahoe County, man. We're not going to do it in Arapahoe County. And I remember thinking, you just made my day. There was time where there was a mom that got called in for her son who'd been busted for, it was drugs or car theft. I can't remember what, some car theft ring. I can't remember. And she leaves the room and the cameras are always on and they always know that they're being recorded. And she like slaps him on the head and is like, I told you never come to Arapahoe County. I told you to never do that. I'm like, I want to advertise this. I want to put this on TV. If you're criminally minded, go somewhere else.
Stay out of our counties.
There's a city for you. It's called Denver. They love you. We don't.
I've found in public policy, you're either going to appeal to criminals or you're going to appeal to families.
Right.
They will not operate in the same space.
That's
It's like a law of physics. So if you allow criminals to come in, like the city of Denver, families leave. You focus in on families, you got to keep the criminals out. They cannot occupy the same space.
That's right.
It's like a law of physics. Someone can write a doctoral thesis on Jeff's law of physics. You cannot have criminals and families in the same spot. So tell us what makes a great district attorney's office.
Well, listen, you know how you've heard the old adage that personnel is policy, right? I mean, who you hire. And one of the great struggles in this particular generation, I talk to Kellner about this stuff all the time, is attracting the best of the best from law schools to end up spending some part of their careers, hopefully their whole careers, being prosecutors. When I was getting into the prosecution game 100 years ago, you know, every opening you'd have 30, 40 more resumes, people wanting to get into a prosecutor's office. Now it's a lot less than that for a couple of reasons. One, the amount of money you can make on the outside is just offensive. Just coming out of law school, I don't know anything. What can you hire me for? And they can make a ton of money, but in my opinion, not as rewarding work. The other thing is the post-George Floyd era, especially with this state, with this General Assembly, everything is couched in terms of cops bad, prosecutors bad, cops lie, cheat, steal, and kill, prosecutors lie, cheat, steal, all this other stuff. It makes it harder to want to put on the white hat because you're not so sure it's white anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a generation like that. Here's the other thing. When I started as a young prosecutor, when you're single and childless, that's the best time to learn to be a trial attorney, because it's not just something you can read in a book or watch My Cousin Vinny and walk in and knock it out of the park. You learn prosecution by the number of cases that you handle and all this. So putting in a 60+ hour week is just kind of the thing you did. I'd bring files home every day. I've never heard more from people that we've hired and from John on this term called work-life balance. I've never heard quality of life things come up more. There are people that have come in and said, hey, I kind of need to take a little bit of a break this week. I worked 50 hours last week. And the answer is, that's it? Just the 50? I mean, well, did you take a day off? Like, what happened? I don't deny that you can't just make work your life. I don't deny that. But there is a different approach here where people look at prosecution as a different kind of job than they used to. So part of making a great DA's office is being able to recruit, train, and retain the best of the best. And I think we're in a position to do that. I also think, too, that you can't have an office headed by someone who's in it to be an elected official. Like, if that's why you want to be a DA, Beth, then you're in the wrong business.
That's called treasurer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yes.
And nobody can name the treasurer in the state of Colorado. He's the most anonymous statewide elected official that we have. But you got to have experience. So if you look out to our west and to our north, you see prosecutors who have scant courtroom experience. And this is what I'm hearing more and more out there from these people, especially
Phil Weiser. Sorry.
Well, that too. But what you're hearing is, hey, this is an administrative position. This is not a go to trial position. And my thought is, well, tell that to the victims of the Aurora Theater Massacre. Tell that to John and Maria Castillo out of STEM. Tell that to the rest of the community when you're going to be the one tasked sitting there at the table when someone comes in and says, here's what we got, boss. What do you think we should do? We don't have elected DAs anymore like old Mitch Morrissey did or Pete Weir out in Jeffco when he was there. I feel like Brian Mason's an exception up in Adams because that dude's a legit prosecutor. And Mike Doherty up in Boulder, both them's totally legit prosecutors. We don't get that all the time. You would be confronted with some horrific case, and that person who's just the administrator as the DA would have to use that discretion to make a decision. But to make it, they'd have to turn and look at other people who know more than they do, who've done more than they do, and say, what should we do? I'm not that guy. When the phone rings in the early morning hours and Tony Spurlock's on the other end of the phone and says, hey, we've got 5 deputies pinned down in an apartment complex just south of County Line Road, right there at the beginning of the new year. We need you to come out. We need you to get some folks. We got to start thinking about warrants and how we're going to resolve this. I don't have to hang up the phone and call 3 other people to be like, help me figure this out. I'm like, I'm there. I'm in the car in 10 seconds and we get over there. I think when you have that kind of I'll climb into the trenches with you leadership, it attracts a better quality prosecutor and staff. It attracts people who are like, I want to be part of this project. This isn't a guy who's just going to be running around giving platitudes and political speeches. When it's nut cutting time, this guy's going to jump into the trenches with us, grab a rifle, and he will lead the charge. And I just think that's something we just don't see as much in DA world.
We're going to war and cleaning up the streets. George Brauchler is in studio. We're going to continue this conversation when we get back from these messages. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
You're breaking my heart, Billy.
I know. But you know the song, right? Kind of appropriate. Yeah, that's for our special guest in the studio.
A little less
I'll take it.
talk and a lot more action. We do
Yeah.
need some action. We need some district attorney fighting crime action. Jeff Hunt here with Bill Thorpe on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Grateful to have you with us in studio. George Brauchler, who made the announcement he's running for governor. No,
Not this time. No, we did that
District
one.
attorney.
We did that one. Woo!
Did
that
you win?
was
You won our straw poll one year at the Western Conservative
I
Summit,
did.
didn't you?
I did.
Yeah,
Guess what? But it was for a best performance dance number.
Well, we don't have to say what the topic was.
Okay,
Just when
sorry.
you say I won a straw poll,
Okay.
it makes you seem credible.
Yes, it
You
does.
probably don't remember this. You got up on stage. We had these like little funny, like modern white chairs that they do on stage
Yeah.
for events like that, and they spin around. And you got in, you went, "This is like a toy." You're like, "Wee!"
Yeah, in front of
around.
I do remember that. No other candidate did that.
No,
and
they did
I
not.
won the straw
And
poll.
there you
If
go.
you
We
spin
like to
around
have
on the
fun at the summit.
chairs.
So you're running for prosecutor of
23rd. Yeah.
the 23rd district here in Colorado. It's a brand new district.
Yeah.
It's going to cover Elbert, Douglas, and Lincoln
Yep,
counties.
huge.
What are the primary issues that those counties face that you're going to take on?
Well, certainly, we've seen the exploding crime. We've seen that the state leads all others in motor vehicle theft, and the drug stuff is almost unquantifiable at this point. And I think that the folks where we live don't want to hear more messages of how can we keep criminals back out on the streets.
Yeah.
I also think that we have real concerns. I mean, you can see this, set the stage for this. You have the city of Denver, the Queen City of Colorado, where I used to walk around as a kid when my parents worked in Denver. I'd take a bus there from Lakewood and walk around, never thought another thing about it. Couldn't see a homeless person. You couldn't find a homeless person.
Right.
To a place now where there are people who I know that they're like, it's just not worth it. I'm not interested in getting attacked by the squeegee mob. I'm not interested in stepping over needles or sleeping bags or by tents that smell like urine. And even though we've taken 1,000 people off the street and you can do what you want with those numbers, that's it. But my point is this: they say I'm a sanctuary city, and Greg Abbott says, prove it. And so he starts sending buses full of people. We come up with 36,000 to 40,000 migrants. And you hear now Mayor Johnston, who I like as a person, man. If you've met this guy, he's a completely affable, nice guy. He's wrong on the policies, right? But just a good dude. His wife's a prosecutor out of Denver. I mean, like, he gets it. And now he starts making these speeches like, federal government, please help us because we can't do this anymore. He goes to the microphone and says, hey, folks, we're out of space for these people. You can look to the east and see the mayor of Boston say, to Boston residents, you should start taking migrants into your home. This is how we help other Bostonians. You need to start taking migrants into your home. But the next thing that happens is what we saw in Aurora. The mayor's city contracts with an Aurora, like a hotel kind of extended stay place. They kick out all the people that actually live and work in Aurora so that they can bring in all these migrants. Then take a look down south in Colorado Springs. Read these Gazette articles. Now Colorado Springs is like, oh, hang on. Don't you be sending us any people. We are not a sanctuary city. Don't want to be a sanctuary city. Stop sending us your... What's between Denver and Colorado Springs? Us, brother.
Right.
It's Arapahoe,
Rock.
Douglas, Castle Rock. We're all there. One of the things that the legislature did years ago was to dismantle our ability to know how the migrant crisis, illegal or otherwise, impacts the criminal justice system. We stopped collecting data. We don't ask anymore. We've stopped sheriffs from sharing information with ICE and other federal agencies. We've stopped allowing sheriffs like the great sheriff in Teller County, Sheriff Mikesell, from contracting with ICE to house illegal immigrants in their jail pending deportation processing. We don't know right now the impact of this, but it's only going to get worse. When Denver can't satisfy its desire to have migrants,
Right.
they're going to all shift into the suburbs. And it's like everything else with Denver. Every one of Denver's bad policy decisions doesn't stay in Denver. It all bleeds out into Adams, Jeffco, Arapahoe, and Douglas. And so I want to get to the bottom of a couple things. One, I want us to be in a position to cooperate with all of our federal partners and state partners. I also want to start getting data again. I think we owe it to Coloradans. We owe it to the people in the 23rd to be able to look at them and say, X percentage of people in our jails shouldn't be in this country to begin with. Like, how can you have a conversation at the federal level about how important this issue is if you can't even quantify the impact in your own damn community? We need to be able to say this is it, or this number of crimes. Where are the articles to say, whoever it was committed this crime? They're not here legally. Like, why can't we get to know that fact anymore? It used to be in the paper. Now we don't do it. I want to know those things so we can figure out how to fix this thing. If we could shut down that border to the south of us, it would have such a positive impact on so many different things. And I want us to re-engage the community in an idea of community-based law enforcement. I don't want law enforcement to seem distant from folks. I want them to feel comfortable walking the streets at night, sending their kids out on their bikes. I want them, when they see a member of law enforcement, to think, I can trust that woman. I can trust that man. If I got problems, I can go and help them. I want victims to feel empowered. Here's the other thing. When you're in a community that isn't safe, you begin to make decisions that forfeit freedom, right? Like, well, I can't go out at these hours, or I can't go to this place. Or if I go, I have to go with someone else. I can't take RTD. I can't, because I feel unsafe. That feeling of unsafety limits your freedom. Well, I want the 23rd Judicial District to be the most free jurisdiction in the state of Colorado.
So let's talk about that. Part of the critique I got when I reposted your announcement on Twitter yesterday had to do with Second Amendment rights. Elbert County, where we live, people are just popping off their rifles on the weekends. And I remember one time talking to law enforcement, because we came from Douglas County, where gun goes off and all of a sudden next door is lit up. Someone's firing guns off. You go to Elbert County and law enforcement's like, so long as the bullet stays on your property, we don't care.
That's right. It's still America out there.
So what's your response to Second Amendment critics or Second Amendment supporters with regards to red flag laws, those types of things, with your leadership in the 23rd district?
I think that's such a fair question. First off, garbage that I'm not a stalwart for the Second Amendment. Let's be clear about some things here. My entire adult life, I've operated under at least one, sometimes two different oaths to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. I believe in it so much, I put on the uniform and went to a place called Tikrit, Iraq, to defend our constitutional rights and values. What they're talking about is in 2018, after Zach Parrish was murdered, when I talk about, hey, you get that call in the early morning hours saying, come on out here, we got deputies under gunfire. Tony Spurlock, who was the sheriff back then, much loved sheriff back then, came forward and said, look, there's got to be a tool for law enforcement to get between the dangerously mentally ill and firearms before they do something. And I had said, no, I don't want to do it. If the NRA is going to be opposed to it, I don't want to do it. And he said, well, could you work with us to come up with something that they might tolerate? So I looked at the bill that Garnett had, and I'm like, this is a non-starter, buddy. We can't do this. The biggest problem with it, of course, is that it focused too much on the guns and not on the mental health piece. It was all about, if we just take the guns away, and provided nothing really for the mental health. So I started working with the NRA to say, look, what's even palatable here? What do we need to change that if this thing is going to happen? And if you'll recall, we had the state Senate by a slim margin. And 2018 became the bloodletting where the Dems took over the General Assembly. So I thought, let's make this at least a due process passable bill. Long story short, I come out and stand with them and say, we need to do something here. I think this is something that's workable. I think we can try to make this happen to get between crazy people and guns. Went to the House Judiciary, sat right next to Dan May, super prosecutor, super conservative from El Paso County. And we said, here are the changes that need to be made. And they made none of them. And then the bill got killed. And then we got killed at the polls. And then the Dems showed up, and guess who stopped taking my suggestions on how to make the law constitutional? A guy named Garnett. They just blew that bill up. They doubled the amount of time that you could have an ex parte order against someone, which is maybe the most poisonous thing about it. They reduced your ability to question the order that was put on you to once a year. That's it. You get one shot at it, and it's up to you now to prove that you should get your Second Amendment rights back. Obviously toxic. I came out back to the same legislature, testified strongly against the bill. And since then, I can't tell you how many damn columns I've written about how poisonous our current red flag law is to the Second Amendment and how much I oppose it. We've expanded red flag now to include Phil Weiser. What in the hell does Phil need the ability to go and complain against Jeff Hunt to try to take his Second Amendment? DAs. They've said DAs can now. What are we? We're not first responders, right? Like the men and women on the ground are in the best position to do this. So I've been against it the whole time. I'm a concealed carry permit holder. I do carry concealed, not here in 710. Mark Crowley, who's our former police officer, should know I do not carry in the studio that often. But this idea that somehow I'm like the Jared Polis of the Second Amendment or something is just such utter garbage. But it's for the haters, man. It's the people that are out there like, we want our person and this, so it's take down. And I'm like, okay, I'll have the debate with you all day, every day.
That's good. Clearing that up for us. We're going to come up against a commercial break here, and we'll take some calls with George. Let's look at some text messages here before we go to commercial break. 5637. Serve as long as Jim Peters.
Serve as long as Jim Peters?
Yeah.
Well, Jim was in 2 terms. I was in 2 terms.
So you'll be able to serve as long as. Is there a cap on how long you can serve?
Back in 1996, we changed our constitution to impose term limits on a whole bunch of different offices. DA was one of them. So the default under the Constitution is 2 4-year terms. However, your jurisdiction can opt out and give you an extra term, or as Pueblo did down there in the 10th Judicial, they wiped out term limits. Jeff Chostner, retired lieutenant colonel for the Air Force, but a Dem, but like a criminal justice minded Dem, like old school Dem.
Yeah.
He could serve for eternity. Beth could serve 3 terms. She's not. She's stepping down. Mike Doherty could serve for 3 terms. Mike Rourke up in Weld. But here where we are, it's just 2 4-year terms.
George, great news for JD 23, says Susie, and the
thanks,
GOP.
Susie.
So
thanks,
you got a winner there. When you win, offer an internship to Professor Weiser so he can learn how to be a prosecutor.
Listen, here's the other thing that I found, and I talked to you about how I think experience is important. And anybody that would run for this race, Republican or Democrat, needs to be asked the very basic questions like, tell me about the murder trials you've done. Like, what was the most difficult? What was the most challenging? Tell me about the biggest case you've ever handled. Tell me how you've managed our budget was $23.1 million when I left office. But it turns out from 2018, none of that is relevant to the majority of voters. They don't care about qualifications. I campaigned against Phil in the AG's office saying the next time the AG steps into the courtroom shouldn't be the first time the AG steps into the courtroom. And that's what we've got as AG. But man, that's what Colorado wanted.
And that's a sad, unfortunate state of affairs. But good news, George is back fighting, and the text messages are all positive. We got a whole bunch of calls coming in, so we'll get to those when we get back from a commercial break. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey, Bill, let's jump into some callers here for George. Adam, line 1, you're on with Jorge Brauchler.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Great.
Living the dream, Adam. How are you?
Oh, good to be alive, my friend. George, you made a claim I found a little interesting. You said that you went to Iraq to protect our Constitution. I'm not sure how the nation of Iraq threatened our Constitution. Maybe you can flesh that out a little for me.
Yeah, I can. First off, it's to uphold and defend it, which is the oath that I took. And the bigger part of that, man, is that when you raise your hand, especially in the modern era where it's an all volunteer military, when you raise your hand and put on that uniform, whatever rank, you are saying to the country, you are saying, I'm willing to give up everything I have and everything I'm ever going to have to fight for the things that you deem important in the protection of our country and our Constitution. So when I got orders to go to Tikrit, Iraq, it wasn't like, do you agree? We're going there to fight for the Second Amendment. We're going there to fight for the Fourth Amendment. The entire effort is about standing up for the Constitution of the United States. I don't get to substitute my judgment for anyone else's. So did I go over there and say, I'm defending the Second Amendment in America by going there? No, it wasn't like that. Am I upholding and defending the Constitution by going there? 100%.
I don't see it, man. Would you have followed orders from Hitler in the 30s?
Well, of course, it's not the same as you can imagine, because in our system of government, we don't have that kind of a system, man. It's just not our thing. It's not Nazi Germany.
Basically, what your answer boils down to, I followed orders.
No, but I also followed lawful and constitutional orders.
Oh, I disagree about that. Hey, can I ask you guys?
You'd be on an island by yourself, by the way, because no court has said otherwise.
Can I ask a question about immigration, or do you guys need to go?
Yeah, we got to run. I apologize, Adam. We can do this a different day. Yeah, I'd like to have him do it, but we got to get
Adam, send it in my text, man. Send it in my text.
Adam's line is open, so feel free to call in. Spencer, Minneapolis. We got about 2 minutes. What's up, Spencer?
Hey, George. Real quick, I don't understand why the opposing viewpoint always boils down to Hitler. Come on.
Well,
seriously?
Yeah.
So my question for you, George, is who are you going to support in the presidential election? Are you going to endorse and support Trump, or have you not decided?
The endorsement part is tough when you're a candidate for an office for which there is a likely primary. That's a tough one. I don't want to alienate any voters on my way to making my point as to why I should be the Republican nominee, but rest assured that just like I have the last two election cycles, 2016 and 2020, DJT as the nominee gets my vote for president.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Good luck.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Can we go to Frank? We got time. Let's go to Frank real quick.
George, good luck. I
Thanks,
can hear the enthusiasm in your voice. I think you've prayed over this, and I feel like you're going the right direction.
Well, yeah, there was prayer involved. God said, don't do it. But I was like, nah, I think I know better. So let's find out if that's
believe it, me as a pastor, that's a recipe for
I want you to
great
carry
success.
along a book or two like Bugliosi, because you're such an excellent prosecutor.
I
And
appreciate
I think you got a lot to contribute. You're one of Colorado's resources.
Oh, Frank, I appreciate it, man. I miss talking to you on the radio.
Okay, maybe some other time.
Yeah, see you, buddy. Thank you for the kind words. I'll say this too. Some people have told me before, like, hey, I prayed on this and this is how I got to this decision. And I'm like, have you ever considered that maybe God doesn't like you? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I got a call one time from a guy from Colorado Springs who said the Lord told him to run for president. And I said, that is great. To those he calls, those he equips. I wish you the best luck, friend.
Did he tell you where to find the money for the campaign? That would be my next question.
That's right.
That's going to help out a lot. If he's going to tell you to run.
Can you do the bread fish thing with money?
Yeah, because I got like $5 in my pocket.
Exactly.
Real nice. Yeah.
2156 text. I love George, and I think he'll make a fantastic
so nice.
DA. We will have George's primary opponent and general opponent maybe on the radio as well. So we're
is there a
Dem
Dem in the office? Running for office?
I don't know. I imagine at some point they will.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It's a very Republican district, as you know.
George, the sense I get from you is Wyatt Earp has ridden into town and he's cleaning up the streets.
Well, listen, there's a couple directions you can go with this office. One is a whole bunch of platitudes backed by no experience, but very, very politically appealing to some, or you can bring in someone who's been there and done that, who wants to do it for his home of almost 3 decades. And that's what I hope I'm doing.
George, can you stick around another segment?
I'll stick around as long as you want.
All right. We'll take some more calls. So feel free to call in 303-696-1971. You can talk with George Brauchler himself, candidate for Judicial District 23. It's also Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. So we'll play some of his more famous quotes. We'll walk down memory lane. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Nine a.m., February 6th in the Mile High City.
They were doing the Smashing Pumpkins. All right, here we go.
Is that Smashing Pumpkins?
Yeah.
I used to be in a Smashing Pumpkins cover band.
Really?
Believe it or not.
There's
it was
a story
there.
I got to know, and I got to know what songs you did.
I
If
know.
you guys have pulled some
Wait
of the
till
old
we go
stuff.
through my whole goth phase of life. We
Yeah,
talked
okay.
a little bit
We
on
gotta
it.
talk about that.
It was there.
Because you mentioned Marilyn Manson.
I've been to Marilyn Manson shows. I
Technically-
went to a Guar show one time.
Oh, I've been to Guar too. Technically, Manson, not goth. They're industrial. He is.
Oh, boy.
I know.
What kind
we
of
could do
partner, George, did I have here?
Ask him about snakes.
I'll show you pictures. Well,
All
not
right.
yeah.
Let's go to the news with Blake Olson. Mr. Blake.
Speaking of snakes, 37 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 50s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Hey, the former host of this show, George Brauchler, dropped by the station, and he's still there. And for those of you who don't know, Brauchler is running for DA in the 23rd district, which includes Douglas County, and he gives really good sound bites.
I want to do this thing. I can't tell you if it's a 1 or 2 term thing for me, but I absolutely am invested in wanting to get this thing off the ground, make it the best damn DA's office in the state. And you know what? Predictably, I would be the only Republican DA left in the metro area.
George Brauchler running for DA. He'll stick around and talk to Jeff the rest of the hour for another segment, I would imagine. A giant in the world of country music has died. Country music superstar Toby Keith passed away last night at the age of 62. The singer was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 2021 and had been undergoing chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. His family was by his side when he passed away. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the Middle East to promote the framework of a hostage release deal. Blinken met with Egypt's president and is expected to meet with several Qatari ministers as well. A House vote on impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has could come as early as today. On Monday, the Republican-led House Rules Committee voted 8-4 to send the measure to the full House for a vote. If the vote is successful, Mayorkas could be the first cabinet official impeached in almost a century and a half. Russia is not giving details on why former Fox News host Tucker Carlson was in Moscow. According to Reuters, Carlson was spotted multiple times in the country's capital over the weekend. I would imagine it's to cover Russia. He's a journalist, so you can check him out on X. NHL Rangers beat the Avs last night 2-1. They'll take on the Devils tonight in a back-to-back at 5:30. The Nuggets take on the Lakers on Thursday. It's 33 in Northglenn and 34 in Englewood and 37 in Denver. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Hey, when it comes to creating the perfect kitchen or bathroom countertop, it's all about understanding the client's needs and personal style. That's why communication is key. Mitch Flora is the master craftsman with the art of granite and works with his team of highly skilled craftsmen, each with their own unique experience to help bring your vision to life, from single residential installations to large-scale projects. Mitch and his team at the Art of Granite will listen to you and get you what you need. Mitch provides granite, marble, quartz, and other materials from his own warehouse in Denver West. I toured it the other day. It's like a beautiful maze of marble. It's awesome at wholesale prices with no markup, so you can get the most out of your budget. Mention KNUS and receive a bathroom countertop free with the purchase of your fantastic new kitchen countertops, or get a kitchen and bathroom sink free with the purchase of any countertop package. Schedule a consultation with Mitch and visit his beautiful showroom in Denver West, or call Mitch at 303-386-5919, or you can visit his website at theartofgranite.com to start dreaming about your new countertops. That's theartofgranite.com. So I sat down with Mitch. This man loves America.
I told you, man. Did you go to his office?
Awesome.
I know.
So listen, folks out there, we all know you vote with your pocketbook, right? The whole Bud Light stuff. It matters where you spend your money. This guy came from Romania the legal way, right?
That's
legal
right.
immigrant,
That's right.
Built this great company, beautiful marble and granite and quartz and all that there. But at the end of the day, you're investing in a guy who just really loves us. He's got the Constitution and Declaration framed onto the wall of his office.
He does.
Cool dude.
He's a guy that was born in communist-controlled Romania, but he had American DNA in him already. You know what I mean? It just didn't catch fire till he came to freedom. You know?
Right. There you go. Hey, it's Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. This is one of my favorites.
Mr. President, I want to raise an issue that I think has been lurking out there for 2 or 3 weeks and cast it specifically in national security terms. You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also
Mondale melt. Right. So even he found it hilarious. He buckled under how funny that was.
Yeah,
so.
on another note, gentlemen, watching that clip, the guy that is the reporter, the guy asking the question, you're like, wow, he's got to be a real journalist because, woof, not as looker. It's been a real change as far as what we have on the TV. You're like, wow, okay,
That's
I bet
so
your
funny.
mom loves you a lot, and everybody else,
so
not so much. Yeah.
All right, let's take some calls. We got George Brauchler in the office. He's announced he's running for Judicial District 23 as the district attorney. And so he's getting back into the political game, running for office, and the lines are full. So let's dive into Brian. Line one.
Hey, happy birthday to Ronnie. Miss the guy. I remember as a kid, my dad wasn't into politics or anything. He's a Christian and a pastor. And but he one day we're listening to a speech. It was one of the State of the Unions, I think, with Reagan. And he turned to me and he goes, "Son, I like this guy." And so from that moment on, I really got into politics and became a political science major. And I'm still active in politics too. But it was Ronald Reagan that inspired me to love this country and to be involved in politics. So R.I.P. Ronnie. And George, I'm gonna miss you, man. We've had some spirited conversations, and you've been a solid guy. You wear your heart on your sleeve like me. You don't pull any punches, and we're gonna miss you on the show. But Douglas County's lucky. I think you're gonna get elected, and keep that place safe. I wish we had a guy like you with some guts in Jeffco, because we're starting to see Jeffco deteriorate. And it's sad.
You know, Brian, I grew up in Jeffco. I was a Lakewood kid, went to Belmar Elementary, Carmody Junior High School, Bear Creek Senior High. And I've never seen it the way it is. It was at a time that I grew up, it was all Republicans as far as the eye could see. In fact, the only elected Democrat for a time was Dave Thomas, who was the DA in Jeffco. Everyone else was a Republican, all the commissioners, the sheriff. You can't find a Republican now in elected office in Jeffco, Brian. Maybe you should think about following in the lead there and jump
I don't
into
know
this
if
thing.
I have enough on us to do that, but I can tell you, it's sad to see what's happening. And like you said, you prayed about it, and you want to defend and the Constitution in your community, and what better place to do it in your own community.
Right. That's right.
We need something like that in Jeffco. The school board's gone to pot. I've contacted the clerk about elections in Jeffco, and he's a joke. They just don't. They've turned their backs on the residents.
Well,
and I can tell you, more of the residents are conservative in Jeffco. It just is. I mean, I've been living Jeffco my whole life.
Jeffco's victimized politically by the significant change in demographics that have just shifted there. It is a slow-growing county. It's the slowest of all the metro area counties in terms of growth. And that growth has taken place, in essence, in swapping out your conservative Republicans for folks who are just much more of your last generation Coloradans, right? The guys that are showing up for the last 10 plus years. Brian, let me ask you this. So you talked about Reagan's quote. Do you remember where you were, one, when the Challenger blew up, but that night when Reagan addressed the country after that? And I can't remember the poet or the poem that this comes from, but when he finishes up by saying they slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God, man, it just chokes me up every time when you think about those people. But he was able to capture that. You know what I mean? He was such a great communicator.
Oh, he was amazing. And I think it was his actorial history, but just a great communicator. And we miss that in politics. He worked across the aisle. He was friends with the Democrat leader. And they would sit down and hash things out together, knowing it was for the good of the country, knowing they were on opposite sides of the issue, but they're like, we got to get something done. True. And I forget his name too, Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill. And Tip O'Neill would give stories about them hashing it out, not with their advisors, not with this guy or this guy. They'd sit down in the Oval and say, we got to move. We got to move in some direction. It's not the way you want to go or the way I want to go, but we got to go somewhere. We are not ever going to see that again. I don't think it's going to be my way or the highway. And it's going to, we're so polarized. I don't even think Ronald Reagan could bring us back at this point if he was resurrected. And that's the sad thing. But I was in 5th grade when I saw the Challenger blow up. Tears all over that classroom. And then the speech again was at home with my family and neighbors. And it was a sad moment. I remember our whole block, we had American people had to put their flags out, half mast. And our whole neighborhood was just out talking in our cul-de-sac about it and what a tragedy it was. And it cracks me up. I mean, it makes me want to cry just talking about it now, but it was a sad moment. And Ronnie brought it together again and brought God into it and said, hey, they're in heaven.
Well, Brian, I love the call, and I hope that you will continue to come after Jeff. I mean, have conversations with Jeff and Bill.
No, I'll come after Jeff and Billy.
Yeah, I know.
I hope so, my friend. I really hope so, Brian. I really hope we keep hearing from you, man, because you're such an interesting
you
thinker,
will.
Man.
You haven't lost. We lost George. You haven't lost me.
Oh, excellent.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for the call, Brian. Brian's line is open, 303-696-1971. I want to get your reaction to this. George Brauchler in the studio.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
He wasn't supposed to say that. His advisors had pushed him not to go that far. Stop at the gate, open the gate.
Yeah. But I don't know. In our lifetimes, man, like if you go to Germany now, I've taken the kids to Germany. Yeah. It's just one unified country. In our lifetimes, there was a wall that separated the dark from the light, the communists from freedom. And it's gone in large part because of that kind of triumvirate of Reagan and Pope John Paul II and Margaret Thatcher. And this speech was a big part of that. I think that final push, you know what I mean? To get it to come down. It was awesome.
Bill, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, no, I want to jump in. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm talking in everybody's ears as I want to do. I want to jump to the phones and welcome Ruben to the Jeff and Bill show, talking with George Brauchler, because Ruben remembered the poem that all of us had a brain fart on. Yeah, so Ruben, welcome.
I think we just lost Ruben, brother.
Ah, crap.
Oh,
well, anyway, he said the poem is
Ruben.
Flight. So yeah.
Also my favorite sandwich, but nonetheless,
that is true. So yeah,
I love that speech. Also, there's a very quick read, a book that was written a while ago by a great Wall Street Journal columnist named Peggy Noonan. Yeah. Peggy got her big start as a speechwriter for Reagan, and she wrote this book called What I Saw at the Revolution, talking about and she talks about him. One of the great strengths he had as a communicator was he always talked in the positive. Like he would not be the person that would say, never forget you are Americans. He would be positive and say, always remember that you are Americans. Yeah. It is your birthright to dream great dreams. You know, and just those little things make such a difference. We don't have anybody quite like that.
We've lost that. We do have Frank on still. Frank, line 2. Can we get Frank? Hey, Frank, are you still there?
I'm here.
All right. What do you want to say to George?
Hey, first, where I was on the Columbia, I happen to know exactly where I was. I was in the delivery room for my first daughter.
Oh boy!
And to this day, I get in trouble because I was watching Reagan more than I was paying attention to the contractions that my wife was having.
Please tell me you named your daughter Reagan.
No, did not do that. But yeah, congratulations, George.
Thanks, buddy.
Follow your passion. I know you have a lot of passion, and I greatly appreciate it. Our passions are similar, but we vary on a couple things. And one thing I always respected is you always treat people respectfully, and I greatly appreciate that. And arguing with you was like running into a mud wall. You wouldn't necessarily agree, but you wouldn't necessarily disagree either. So it was just one of those things that, you know, that's just the way it was.
Well, I
Reagan
love your passion for the topics too, and holding the left accountable, man. I loved it when you called in, because we always knew we were going to get something good. And you're very, very strong on pro-life, which I greatly respect, man, your position on that.
Which to Jeff, I have to say, you know, if I've never attended the Conservative Summit, I'm no longer Republican. I am a I don't want to say independent. I forget what they call it.
Unaffiliated.
But yeah, unaffiliated. But one thing I will tell you, Jeff, is that if I was at one of the summits and somebody started talking about, you know, a liberal came and talked about, you know, crushing babies' heads as they exit the room, I'm sorry, I'd have to leave. I could not listen to that.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Breaks, and that's why I think we do have to listen to all opinions, but there are limits.
Yep, I agree with that entirely. CCU is known as Pro-Life U, so you're in good company with many there. Well, George, we're up against kind of a commercial break. We got a few minutes left. Frank, thanks so much for the call. Give us your kind of closing campaign pitch here as you're running for district attorney of Judicial District 23, the new judicial district in the state of Colorado.
Listen, I talk to everybody in the state of Colorado, because I don't think this is a message just for the 23rd, but I think the folks from Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln should hear this. Look, if our goal here is to depoliticize the criminal justice system, if our goal here is to create support for, respect for, and have faith in a public safety system that is free of all the other biases that we see leak around the country in these things, then we need to get back to old school prosecution and someone who has been there and done that. Listen, I didn't say this before on the radio, but it's not an accident to have the honor of the endorsement already of all three sheriffs from the three counties that make up this judicial district. Law enforcement knows what it takes to make this community safe. And at least these three gentlemen who are career law enforcement officers, I mean, I think each one of them is somewhere between 30 and 40 years in the saddle, if longer. They didn't hesitate to say, absolutely, this is exactly what our community needs. And there'll be more endorsements that are law enforcement related that come out. But at the end of the day, if what you're looking for is the confidence to know that the bad guys will be held accountable, that the people that run afoul of the law by mistake will be treated with mercy and grace, that there will be justice, then I'm the guy you're looking for. If you're looking for an administrator, someone who treats the office like it's a political position to be had so that they can go make speeches here and there, there are probably other candidates for that. But if you're looking for someone who has unmatched experience and is proven time and again willing to stand up and face whatever it is, politically, in the courtroom, it doesn't matter. I think I'm your guy, and I'm pretty confident that as your district attorney, we're going to make the 23rd Judicial District the best damn DA's office in the state of Colorado. No question.
How do people learn more about your candidacy? You got a website up?
Well, I'd like to just stay here and take their calls, Jeff. So we do have a website up. It's cryptically entitled GeorgeBrauchler.com. So
there you go.
Listen, there's probably going to be some other version of this thing like George wants to be DA, or GeorgeBrauchler.com was simple in some ways, but nobody can spell the name. I can't spell the name, but if you get close, Google will help you with the rest of the way. So it's just firstandlastname.com. You can find us there. We're always interested in getting your help, whether it's your time, your treasure, or just your good thoughts on what the issues are in your day. Love to hear it. We'll be out there. You'll see us out there. Ask me the questions.
Mark Hillman, who served as Senate Majority Leader and State Treasurer, is going to be on with us after the break. He wrote a great article, When Character Was King, about Ronald Reagan on his 113th birthday. So stick around for that. George, thanks so much for visiting. Don't be a stranger, my friend.
Weird to be interviewed here by someone who doesn't smell like Stefan's previous night. No, I'm kidding. Jeff and Bill, thanks so much for the time, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, George. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
9:26 a.m., February 6th, Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. Little walk down memory lane here.
Next Tuesday, all of you will go to the polls. Will stand there in the polling place and make a decision. I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is it easier for you to go and buy things in the stores than it was 4 years ago? Is there more or less unemployment in the country than there was 4 years ago? Is America as respected throughout the world as it was? Do you feel that our security is as safe, that we're as strong as we were 4 years ago? And if you answer all of those questions yes, why then I think your choice is very obvious as to who you'll vote for. If you don't agree, if you don't think that this course that we've been on for the last 4 years is what you would like to see us follow for the next 4, then I could suggest another choice that you have.
Online with us is Mark Hillman, who served as the Senate Majority Leader and State Treasurer. He has a great article up on markhillman.com, When Character Was King, marking the 113th birthday of Ronald Reagan. Mark, thanks so much for being on the program.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you.
So let's cover your article. You kind of take us back to the days of Ronald Reagan's ability to kind of pull everybody together. You know, he was the last presidential candidate to largely unite the country. Reagan defeated Carter 489 to 49 in the Electoral College and 51% to 41% in the popular vote. 4 years later, he won 49 states and 59% of the popular vote. Why is it important to keep Reagan at the front of our mind as conservatives?
I think it's because Reagan had a humble attitude. He was a nice person, and he had an optimistic view of America. And I think that is what people really were attracted to, that here's somebody who, when everybody else had their doubts about America, he had faith not only in our country, but in the people of our country.
You write here that for starters, he was nice, that he considered important for, that was considered important for your career during those days, is to be nice. And you kind of quote Peggy Noonan there. He came from humble roots. His father, Jack, was a door-to-door salesman and a blue-collar Democrat. Ronnie was an FDR Democrat until his strong opposition to communism caused him to register as Republicans. A longtime friend who knew Reagan from the early days in his acting career said the thing about him is he never changed. He was humble. He had no sense of entitlement. It wasn't about him ever.
Yeah, that goes back. He came to California because he was working. You'll like this. He was working as a radio announcer, I believe, for WHO in Des Moines, and he convinced the radio station to send him to California to cover the Chicago Cubs farm team from Iowa that was going to California. And of course, he wanted to go to California to see if maybe he could get a job in show business. But this friend of his, and the name escapes me right now, but this friend of his talked about how she knew Reagan from when he first got his start as an actor, when he became president of the Screen Actors Guild, governor of California, and then president of the United States. And she said it was always external. Nothing internal about him ever changed. He was always humble. He never felt like he was the most important person in the room, and he always had a way of making other people feel like he felt they were important.
Mark, we've kind of moved away from this in our politics. Our politics is very vindictive, very vicious. People fight each other on Twitter. I fight the Democrats on Twitter. I mean, it's kind of where we are as a culture. This whole next generation, I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm like the oldest millennial out there, but a majority of millennials, a majority of Gen Z have never seen politics the way Reagan did politics. How do we educate people? How do we remind people of those kind of better angels of our nature, the better angels of our nature? I think that's the phrase from Lincoln. But how do we help educate people about that?
Well, it was one of the reasons that I wrote this. I also think it's important if you can go online and listen to some of Reagan's speeches, whether it's his 1984 debate with Walter Mondale, where they're picking on Reagan because he's 73. He's already the oldest president ever. And the moderator asked him a question about, he's concerned about age in this race. And he quips that he will not make an issue out of his opponent's youth and inexperience. Mondale was 17 years younger, and even Walter Mondale cracks up at that. You know, I think people will rally to somebody who shows that they don't take themselves too seriously. And you're right, we are in a grave shortage of that right now. I think probably it's also because we all take ourselves way too seriously instead of focusing on the things that are important, like what can we do to make our country better. And there's certainly a long list of things that we need to do right now to strengthen our country.
You're right. Reagan confronted his political opponents with optimism and good humor. We came across some of my favorite humorous quotes from Reagan pulled in that humor. Whenever you watched him, and I was very young when he was the president, whenever you watched him, you didn't know if he was going to be serious or humorous. At any moment, he could flip on a dime to be humorous like that. Mark, you were a little bit older when Reagan was president. What do you remember about his presidency that sticks out to you?
One personal reflection.
Thank you, Verizon.
Yeah, Mark, I think we got a bad connection.
I'm going to call him right back.
Okay, Mark's driving in he serves out east, or he lives out east, but he served as majority leader and state treasurer for the state of Colorado, and has written a great article about when character was king. Kind of, what's your advice to a young conservative these days that wants to get into politics?
I was 31 when I was first elected.
I think we lost Mark again.
Yeah, this is the problem. I'll try him back once more.
So we have some breaking news coming in right now. Breaking news: CNBC appeals court denies Trump immunity in D.C. election case. A federal appeals court in Washington, D.C. ruled that Donald Trump does not have immunity from prosecution in his election case as a result of having been president at the time of the alleged crimes. Trump is expected to ask the Supreme Court to overturn the appeals court ruling. The case is related to Trump's attempt to reverse his 2020 election loss to President Joe Biden. Did we get Mark back now? Mark,
I'm on your favorite stretch, Highway 86, where it's hilly and the signals are not that great.
There you go. So what's your advice? We were just doing some breaking news, but I'll turn back to you real quick. And Mark, what's your advice to a young conservative that wants to run for office on the 113th birthday of Ronald Reagan?
Well, get a little experience in the real world before you decide to pass laws on everybody else. I think that goes across the political spectrum. And then secondly, again, don't take yourself too seriously. Remember who you are and why you run when you start out, so that you won't forget that when you are tempted to let power go to your head.
That's right. A good reminder from Mark Hillman of the importance of character in our elected officials, which is something that seems to be waning these days. You can read his article at markhillman.com, markhillman.com. Again, the 113th birthday of Ronald Reagan. Mark, I appreciate you being on the show with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So again,
Excellent.
Breaking news: appeals court denies Trump immunity in D.C. election case. This is, friends, unfortunately, what the next 8 months, 10 months are going to look like with regards to this campaign. You're going to have the Democrats throwing and using lawfare in every potential capacity in an effort to stop Donald Trump.
But do you agree with his argument? Do you agree with his argument that, I just want your opinion on the court case. Do you think the court adjudicated this fairly?
I don't know. I'm reading this, but I will tell you, as a Donald Trump supporter, that this just reeks of the effort to keeping a political opponent off the ballot by using lawfare. Because that's all they're doing. And I don't think Donald Trump tried to overturn an election on January 6th. I just don't. I don't. I've read his speeches. He said that he encouraged people to go up there to peacefully assemble and exercise their rights. And I think the left has utilized this to try to keep him off the ballot. And they've done this with everybody around Trump. And so we're engaged in the use of lawfare. And we'll hopefully have guests on to talk about this in the coming days. We'll be revealing this decision so we can talk more about it tomorrow. But again, breaking news: appeals court denies Trump immunity in D.C. election case. The phones are lighting up. So Billy's taking the phones here. The legal battle over Trump's immunity claim stems from the criminal election interference case being prosecuted by special counsel Jack Smith in U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. Trump is charged in the case with 4 counts of crimes, including conspiracy to defraud the United States and conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. He has pled not guilty. In Tuesday's ruling, the appeals panel rejected 3 separate immunity arguments Trump lawyers made. Quote, both as a categorical defense to federal criminal prosecutions of former presidents and as applied to the case in particular.
Yeah, now that's important because Trump's argument was that it's the Nixon argument. When the president does it, it's not illegal. That's a scary, scary statement. And when we're talking about support for Donald Trump, understand, while he has said that in social media posts, these are the lawyers that he is paying to advocate for him in court, making the argument that when a president does it, it's not illegal. And during this appellate process, one of his lawyers was asked directly, does that mean that a president could order the assassination using SEAL Team 6 of their political opponent and you couldn't be charged? And the response was, not until Congress runs them through the impeachment process. And if they weren't convicted in impeachment, no criminal charges are possible. That's spooky. Because if you think, well, obviously Donald Trump didn't do it, that's irrelevant. The argument is important because you're telling me you want to give Biden that power? You want to give Biden the power to, I mean, I understand it is, again, this is a conspiracy theory, in my opinion, that there is this marching by the leftists or with Joe Biden and the Department of Justice to target conservatives or even Donald Trump. I disagree with that premise. But the issue is you want to give Biden the understood power that if he wanted to, he could order the assassination of Trump, and we can't hold him responsible. That's scary.
Flip side of this, every future president who leaves the office will be immediately indicted by opposing parties.
Disagree. I disagree.
Why can't they?
You'd have to find a crime.
Well, it seems like we're in the business of finding the person first and then finding the crime.
That in my opinion, that would be the investigations that are going on in the House right now, where we're trying to find the person, Biden, and now trying to connect the dots on the crime. We do have some crimes by Mr. Trump, something directly. I mean, you have to, the Mar-a-Lago case is a direct open and shut case. He's guilty. Absolutely he is. And we have service members that are behind bars right now for doing the exact same thing he's accused of doing. In fact, accused of doing less.
Right.
And they're in
Democrat
prison.
leaders that aren't behind bars.
Like who? But for what? For as far as the classified documents.
Right.
Who? No, for what?
Didn't Joe
Show me.
Biden have classified documents?
Yeah, and what
in
happened?
His garage.
Yeah, he had 30, and Trump had 300. What happened when when the government asked for him back? What happened? And this is important. What happened?
I'm guessing they gave them back.
Yes. What did Trump do?
Isn't he allowed to hold them as president?
No, he wasn't president at the time. He had left the office after January 10th on 2020. Or 2021, he's gone. No more. He has no more presidential powers. He cannot possess classified documents. He's no longer the president. Also,
So
they don't belong to him.
presidential immunity in your universe.
Oh yeah, there is presidential immunity, but not for this. Not for this
who picks
directly.
that? Who
Hang on.
picks this and that?
Well, obviously the courts. The courts just did. They just did. And if we're getting to this idea that,
Right.
oh, it's a liberal
so
judge
their
or conservative
argument
judge,
that we can just prosecute any former presidents, whoever leaves office, is
then
that,
you're gonna
that's
have to, again,
absolutely going to open this up.
you're going to have to,
You know,
you're going to have to find the crime. I mean, that's the thing is I understand the illusions and the aspersions, but things are different once you walk into that courtroom and you have to actually put the dots on the I's and cross the T's. And that's a different thing. And in the classified documents case, Trump said, no, these are mine, and obfuscated where he was keeping them from not only the government, but even from his own lawyers.
So he's
he
not
had his
allowed
lawyers
to do that as president.
No, he's not president. That's important in this conversation. He is
but
not
they
president.
came with them when he was president after he finished presidency.
And that's not okay. You can't. Listen.
Says
everything.
who?
Says the U.S. Do you remember when? the Clintons? Hang on a sec. Do you remember? Hang on. Do you remember when the Clintons took like a whole bunch of desks and tables and stuff like that?
Right.
That wasn't okay. They were taking items from the White House. Not okay. That was not okay, and yes, illegal. Same thing here. These are classified documents that Donald Trump does not have the purview to hold on to. But most importantly, says the government, the DOJ. And this is not about partisanship. This isn't like it changed. It didn't change when Joe Biden got in power. All of a sudden, it's like, nope, sorry, you can't have it.
Was it the archives? Wasn't it the archives?
Well, the archivist, that's the same thing, but the DOJ charged him. And the DOJ is the ones that charged him. An archivist, you can't have it. It's not his personal property. Because he was president, he can't take U.S. documents and then abscond with them. They're not his personal property. They belong to the U.S. government. And when the U.S. government asks for them back, you give them back. That's the difference in the Mike Pence case. That's the difference in the Biden case. That's the difference. When they were asked for it, they gave them back. Trump said, nope, sorry, mine. And now I'm going to hide them. That's a crime.
I don't know if it is.
Why not?
I will tell you this.
Explain that
I
to
will
me.
tell you this. One of the most fascinating conversations I had with Ken Starr before he passed, and this was just a private conversation, was his regret on the use of special investigations to go after political opponents, and how that started with Clinton and has now just exploded into politics. And I think a lot of this is just a continuation of that. We use the Department of Justice. We use these special investigators. We use any angle we could possibly use to criminally prosecute our political opponents. And that sounds far more like a banana republic than the United States of America. So I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. We got some text coming in. Explain to Billy that Biden took those documents when he was VP. Totally illegal.
Doesn't matter because he gave them back. Again, Trump, again, the whole idea. No, wait.
Billy.
Wait. In Mar-a-Lago, what is Trump charged with? In the Mar-a-Lago case, what did Jack Smith charge him with? The illegal
Donald Trump.
The illegal retention of government documents. Biden and Pence didn't behave the same way. When the government said, can we have them back? They gave them back. As soon as Trump said no, now you've crossed that threshold and the actions are illegal. That's what Jack Smith is charging him with, the illegal retention.
Just cleaned out his server and everyone would have been fine. All right, we're up against a commercial break. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Ronald Reagan's 113th birthday. Welcome back. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's been a wild day, my friend.
It has been
George
crazy.
Brauchler in studio.
That was crazy.
Bringing it back.
Yeah, he found out that there is traffic during the show. That was a discovery
right,
made today. Now, I just want to go back a little bit to the conversation we were having. Help me understand why you don't see a difference between Donald Trump not giving them back and Biden and Pence
I
giving
will
them
tell
back.
you this. I am so jaded. I am so
That's fair.
jaded by the over prosecution of Donald Trump that it's hard for me to believe anything that comes in these.
Now,
right? Because I
okay.
went through Russia collusion, perfectly fine phone call, impeachment this, impeachment that. And then, January 6th, he did this horrible. I went and read the speech. I poured over the speech he gave, right?
Yeah.
Peacefully march up to the
Good question.
Capitol.
Okay,
all that
let's,
stuff.
let's
so
put a
I'm
pin there for a
so jaded.
Yeah.
I have no trust. And this is by the same people that, forced all of our kids out of schools into online. And you go all down that
was
path,
that's
right?
the Trump administration.
And I think he was wrong about
Okay,
that.
I know, but when you're mad about the other people doing it,
left,
but
right?
that was the Trump administration.
So
for the
now
people at home.
now he really did do something wrong. Okay. He really did. All that other stuff we talked about. Oh, we were wrong on that. But this time he had some documents, and we're really going to make him pay because God forbid he be the president of the United States again.
That's your interpretation as to whether or not they were wrong. Let's go back to that speech for a sec. You talked about the fact that you read it, and you read him say peacefully and patriotically. Yes. How many times in that speech did he say that? Do you remember?
Once.
How many times did he say fight or fight like hell?
I don't know.
20. So now what I'm saying is if your son or daughter comes to you,
go to jail. You said it more. No. Go to jail.
No, I'm talking about your perception and your interpretation.
Right.
If your child brings you a speech or something they're writing for class and they say, Dad, I'm talking about this being peaceful and patriotic, and that appears once in their speech or in their writing, and they have 20 times said you have to fight or fight like hell, what do you think the dominant theme is? Is the dominant theme fight or is the dominant theme peaceful?
The dominant theme is stop the radical left.
No. I asked you a direct question. I asked you a direct question. Is it which one?
In your categories,
well, here's
Bill.
the issue. Here's the issue, though, and this is the problem I've got. I hear this all the time from people saying, you know what? Donald Trump said it once, and that meant everybody was going to be peaceful and patriotic. However, when he said fight like hell 20 times, somehow that didn't matter. I find it interesting that people say, well, because he said this one phrase once, everybody was going to listen to him. But we weren't going to listen to him say fight 20 times.
Go be violent.
Hang on.
Politicians say that all the time.
Hang on.
And it has to do with issues.
He said you're going to have to fight like hell or you're not going to have a country anymore. And he gathered those people on January 6th on the day in which we were supposed to certify the results, a day in which he and the RNC had worked together to have a plan to not certify the results and have Republicans object to it, which then would kick it back to the state legislatures and then put him in power, despite the fact that he didn't win the election.
All right,
yes,
we had to definitely get into it at least
Absolutely.
one point during the show, and we'll continue this conversation tomorrow.
We'll do the Russia thing. We will do the other ones later because that's a whole different thing. You got to read the Mueller report, and we can go back to that phone call. Which is weird.
Perfectly fine phone call.
Yeah, which is weird because
reads, I gotta get to read it.
Oh yeah, you do. Okay, I will be quiet. Oh, I want to get into this. Okay, for another day, sir.
Right, we're at the end of the show, friends. You got to stick around. This is what the beauty between Jeff and Bill show is going to be like.
It'll be fun.
Sick and tired of achy joints? Dread the idea of surgery? You need to call QC Kinetics today. Hey, it's Jeff Hunt. Listen, the state of healthcare is always changing. The old ideas like steroids and surgery are no longer your only options. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative, non-surgical, drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. Take it from a former ultra runner. If you got knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain from arthritis or injury, or you're crazy enough to run 50-mile races, don't let this pain keep you from living your best life. QC Kinetics advanced state-of-the-art treatments harness and direct your body's natural ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. This is a revolutionary approach that can get you long-term relief with no downtime. Make 2024 the year you reclaim your mobility, reclaim your independence, walk and run and play and live, and sign up for 50-mile races without the danger and trauma of surgery and without harmful drugs. Call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation, 303 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986. All right, so you got a sense of what this show is going to be like. Everything from breaking news to conversations with political candidates, weather, Blake Olson providing news reads for us. And then, of course, Bill and I will get into it. Me, the rock rib conservative, Bill, the independent thinker. And with all of this election season, you're not going to find a show anywhere like this, anywhere else in the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
This is not about driving an agenda. This is about honest conversation, keeping Colorado values at the center. So be sure to tune in each and every day. Right after us, Charlie Kirk, and then Dennis Prager, Officer Tatum, and we've got Mark Levin later tonight. So, I mean, Salem's where it's at, guys.
Oh, this is so much fun. This was great today. And hi to George Brauchler. Thanks for stopping in, my friend. That was wonderful. Running for the 23rd.
It was great to see George. So stick with the Jeff and Bill Show, weekdays 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We'll be back tomorrow. The Jeff and Bill Show.
On News Talk 710, KNUS.